I warmly welcome you to this conference this year, 28th International Scientific Conference, Research for Rural Development, 2022. My name is Gatis Vitals, and it's my honor to host this plenary session for the conference. But to start things, first I would like to invite our university rector, Professor Jovita Piletsko, for a welcome speech.
Okay, hello everybody, dear conference guests and organizers. I welcome you at the Latvia University of Life Science and Technologies and the International Scientific Conference Research for Rural Development. Already is traditional annual conference, and Gatis already said this is 28th time that this conference has happened, and of course this is very good way bring together scientists from different countries to discuss how we can develop and improve rural areas and their performance. And rural development is the second pillar of the European Union Common Agriculture Policy, reinforcing the first pillar of income support and market measures by strengthening the social, environmental, and economic sustainability of rural areas. And the European Commission contributes to the sustainable development of rural areas through three long-term objectives. First of all, fostering the competitiveness of agriculture and forestry. Second, ensuring the sustainable management of natural resources and climate actions. And third, achieving balanced territorial development of rural economies and communities, including the creation and maintenance of employment. And agriculture and rural areas are the central element to the European Green Deal policy, and the new Common Agriculture Policy will be a key tool for reaching the ambitions of the farm to fork and biodiversity strategies. But today we have very difficult geopolitical situation in the world, the war in Ukraine and rising resources, especially energy prices, which will affect the stability and availability of food supply chains, and of course rural development issues. And I hope in this conference, scientists can find solutions for these new problems. And I hope today conference you will discuss also scientifically based solutions. And the scope of our conference is very broad because we have several sections in this conference: agriculture science and veterinary medicine, food science, forestry and wood processing, water management, rural engineering, education and information technologies, economic sciences. And it's very, very important to discuss different important topics for the development of rural development. And I hope these 2 days will be very successful. And I hope you will find new ideas and solutions, not only for development of rural areas, but also for the development of national economies. And I would like to wish successful work in this conference. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rector, for a warm welcoming speech. So I guess now we can proceed for next lineup of the conference. But before that, I just like to mention a couple of facts about the conference. So we will have 40 oral presentations in these two days. We also have additionally 18 published poster papers on conference website. Then 124 people actually contribute to this conference, which is great. And those people and scientists are from Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria, and Estonia. And I guess the number 28 already says a lot about this conference, about longevity of this conference. And I think it's wonderful that for 28 years we can organize this conference. And I hope this conference will keep long living. And actually, in context, I would like to mention and express our university gratitude to Ausma Markevica, who is a long-term backbone of this conference and who's been tough sometimes and very on point with organizing this conference for all these years as one of the person who do the so-called dirty job, right? We all know that we can present here papers and it's all nice and all good and everything published and so on. But Ausma was one of the persons who is responsible for all the technical organization of the conference. And not only me, but we have in our university, but we also have received gratitude from our international partners. And I will quickly share. Let me see. So, and this is appreciation from our partners from Vytautas Magnus University to Ausma Markevica for all these, to organize this conference for all these years. So that's also a great recognition from our partners. So, so about further presentations. So regulation is 15 minutes and 5 minutes for questions. So let's stay sharp on the schedule. I would be I will moderate this session. So I will mention if you kind of stepping over the time when it's time to wrap up the presentation. So I hope you forgive me if I do so. But let's start the presentations. And the first presentation in my list is by Ilze Brante from University of Latvia and Birta Slok from University of Latvia on topic selection of companies for student involvement in work-based learning.
Dear colleagues, I am Ilze Brante from Ogre Technical School and I am studying Latvian University, and my article is about work-based learning and how involves the companies in work-based learning. Today, I am in this moment in France with 22 countries of different vocational education schools, and we speak about work-based learning too, how better develop work-based learning, because it is very important to bring high quality of vocational education. From 2013, the first time come work-based learning in Latvia. It was 6 vocational education schools that begin pilot project, and after pilot project were established regulation with cabinets of ministers of Latvia. But from pilot project's experience, we understand that this company plays the first role in work-based learning, because when we have company, the school have possibilities to bring the students in company. What is the work-based learning? It is the responsibility from all parts involve participants. It is the school, it is the company, it is the student, and it is possible involve company in development of vocational education and make vocational education responsible to the needs of company. And we makes a program. Company established workplaces for every student, and for first study year, the students how go to company knows company and know really it is my job. It is my interest of this profession. And for every partners, it is very important to the result, because the student end of the study year or in the time the study have agreement and have possibilities to work in this company in holiday, in free time. For companies, very important, because company is responsible about the content of teaching program and how high quality worker in the company. And of course, for the school, it is very important too, because it is a prestige school, good results of school students. It is so very quickly about this content in my article, together with my professor, Jovita Piletsko.
Maybe I can add also that what Ilse already told, because she has really very big experience in organizing this work-based learning, maybe one of the biggest in our country, and that is because she has worked also at the Ministry of Education and Science, and now she is leading Ogre Technicums, which is one of the leading educational establishments in this realization of work-based learning. And this was inspired by Germany and Austria, and therefore it is really very much taken from those countries. And there are also some experience in Spain, Portugal, Greece, Slovakia, Italy, and as well as other countries. Yes, but in our country, it is really made very successfully together, where there are involved different stakeholders. It is ministry, it is with public administration, there is also municipalities, there are also companies, and there are also schools. And all are really cooperating in really very having really very good results, and it is going according the requirements that it is necessary to have a bigger share of those who get professional education in comparison with those who have secondary education. And now it is going really very quickly. And we made also several researches and asked also students, or asked also teachers, asked also public administrators, and that was really very nice when we got the response from student that he has written in comments, yes, because there was evaluation, but in comments he has written, now I am very important person because now I have income. I can support my family. I'm really very proud. And that's very young person who was really as we understand from a problematic side. And that is really very good that such activities are taken in our country with really excellent results. And there are also these non-governmental institutions which are supporting different institutions like as Lettera, like as also other, and also a company. For example, one of the companies, it is Hansa Matrix, which is really very high-tech company which is involved in this work-based learning with really excellent results. Yes, and that is one of good examples which we are proud and which we are sharing also with other countries. This is really very, very, very good, and that is really beneficial for students. And here we have paid attention also how it is. But time is going, and therefore thank you very much. But we are ready to answer on questions.
Thank you very much for presentations. So anyone has some question, you can also type question in the chat box if you have some. Or not, then I have warm-up question. I know that in some industries, the companies are really willing to collaborate on such accepting students for internships and for this work-based education. And I'm from IT field myself, and the IT companies, including Hansa Matrix, is quite responsive. How about other fields? Like maybe there is more saturation in some fields with the competition of employees, and are they willing to collaborate? Or this is more like engineering
No, it is
companies or
different.
others?
They are different fields. They are really different fields. But in many cases, it is so that companies, because they require employees, and they are ready to be involved. Yes, also from very early stage, just to have competitive labor force. Yes, and therefore it is also beneficial because they are modern and they are well equipped. But we have now during the last years, it is really very big contribution made also to the vocational education institutions, because they are really renewed, they are really well equipped, excellently equipped. But this cooperation with everyday work, and they are really part-time working at the company, part-time they study at school, and it is really very good balance, which is taken from Germany, from Austria, and from one side it is in our country. I think that it is even developed really very well, because it really works. It really works, and companies are interested, and municipalities are interested. Of course, also education institutions are interested, and everybody is just only gaining. Yes, and it's also very good that there is also support from the state, because this administrative support as well as this legal support is really very important. Yes, and that. This realization of this really work-based learning is one of these very good success what we can be proud of. And as Rector already mentioned, that it is really very important to have competitive labor force, and this is one of the niches where they are prepared. Yes, and in different fields. Yes, because I know that these Ogre technicums, they cooperate really with many companies, and Ilse of course can say more. Maybe Ilse can add. Yeah.
I can explain the Ogre Technical School how 300 companies, more than 300, but from 2017, work-based learning is supported with Europe Social Funds. And develop this Europe Social Funds, Latvian Confederation of Employers, and all Latvian schools, private schools, state schools are involved in work-based learning, and it is really very important for our for companies.
I don't see any other question. Just one more quick question. As you mentioned, 300 companies, and they have various requirements for the skills, right? So, for example, in some fields, the technology variations are so broad. Some company likes to work with particular tool, different company, different tool. Like some company likes to use this brand devices, or other likes this brand devices, and they kind of push that, hey, for example, Ogres Technicums, please provide us the people who can work with Pesto tools, for example, or tools by certain company. Is this an issue? Do you see this as an issue from company side happening? Like they really push for certain skills and they don't care about others because that's their company profile.
Yeah, because every teaching program, how individual teaching plan in companies that is responsible for profession, and it is individual teaching plan from first study year, and this teaching plan and content is responsible to teaching program and make together with the company. And these companies, for example, it is the specialist cook or specialist waiter. It is the many of companies, one students or students go to hospital, to hotel. and how this work experience, for example, forestry machines company, Intrax, or Baltic Agro Machinery, any of students, because we house so many companies.
Is there any other questions? I don't see in the chat box. Anyone? Maybe if you have a question, you can raise a hand in this Zoom function, or let me know in chat. I don't see questions, so thank you very much for presentation, and let's proceed for next presenter. Our next presenter is Juris Hasners from Institute of Agriculture Resource and Economics, and Andras Virbule from Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies. And their paper title is European Union Funding as a Determinant of Foreign Direct Investment in Rural Areas, Policy Implications.
Our research focuses on foreign direct investments as economic indicator which is considered to be beneficial for the economy by the generally considered beneficial for the host country. And we try to find some connections between FDI and EU funding. We have 110 rural districts. We use data before administrative reform in 2021. So the data maybe is not the latest, but we cannot extrapolate the data from 110 rural districts to 40 or something districts we have now. Recent geopolitical changes have provided for more cautious attitudes towards FDI. We can see capital flows, while FDI might increase capital inflows, the opposite could happen when companies import supplies. Then we have capital outflows. If we think that increased competition is beneficial, then FDI can hinder domestic investment as local companies start losing interest to invest in their domestic products. There are expropriation risks. We can see that now, early in this year, Russia had retaliatory measures against sanctions from EU and other countries, and that can lead to expropriation of foreign assets and other property. But in Latvia, at the same time, we cannot expropriate Russian and Belarusian assets in the hospitality sector, mainly in Jurmala resort, because the ownership structures of these companies are very complex and difficult to legally solve. As for performance, poor performance, we have our major confectionery owned by Norwegian investors, Orkla factory. They have long shifts, hard work, salaries below the national average. And Latvians are not very eager to join the company. And one other factor is imported labor risks. We have for decades several established recruitment companies which specialize on work permits for third country citizens. And Latvian law favored this because the salaries for third country citizens are higher than the Latvians, and this law is favorable to labor imports. At the country level, there are plenty of studies and research on determinants of FDI. In Southeastern Asia, we have plenty of cross-country comparisons. Similarly, it's in North Africa and South America. And as of spatial distribution of the FDI within a single country, then studies are fewer. And mostly the studies find that the EU funding has positive impact on FDI at the country level. But at the regional level, single country is not studied in terms of FDI spatial distributions. That's one of the reasons we decided to examine this. We made a preliminary research which doesn't imply any causality, but correlation between FDI accumulated over years from 2015 and 2019 is negatively correlated with the EU funding, aggregate EU funding from 2015 to 2019. And also simple regression. We don't have any reason to believe that the relationship between these two indicators is linear, but regression also is negative, pointing towards a possibility that EU funding negatively impact the total accumulated FDI. And also, when we divide all 110 districts by median, the lower segment has higher FDI and higher segment of EU funding has lower FDI. So we decided to check the hypothesis, test the hypothesis that EU funding has a negative impact on FDI. And we decided to use instrumental variables method because we cannot use such method as propensity score matching because we don't have control groups, because almost every rural district has received some EU funding, so we cannot form a control group. We can use generalized propensity score matching method and instrumental variables regression method. We decided to use instrumental variables regression. So here's a layout of instrumental variables method. The main goal is to eliminate the possible impact of so-called confounded or unknown factors that might impact the FDI besides the EU funding. And there are two simple conditions. Correlation between error terms exists, and the other condition, correlation doesn't exist between the instrumental variables and the error terms. Here you can see simple steps in instrumental variables regression. The method was developed by late Nobel Prize winner Guido Imbens and his associates in the United States. There are a couple of regressions. After regressions, we calculate expected values, and then by extracting expected values from real values, we obtain error terms. And after that, we create a correlation matrix to check whether two conditions are satisfied. Here are the results. Maybe you don't have to look at the figures, but the most important thing is that in a first column, all the coefficients are from regressions are statistically significant, at least at 10% interval. And the correlation matrix also confirms the results. We have a negative moderate correlation, which is statistically significant, and the error terms are not correlated one with another. So the results are statistically significant. Then after obtaining the results, we made clustering of Latvian rural districts by statistic region, by town population in districts, by state border, whether the district is bordering with other countries or it's inland district, and also we divided by median depending upon distance from district center, distance from the capital city. So by forming these clusters, we can see that what is the situation with the with the clusters in terms of EU financing and FDI. The distribution of FDI is shown on the left side. In regional breakdown, it shows marked differences between regions with majority of inflows to central region. In eastern region, in Latgale, the inflows are the smallest. At the same time, on the right side, you can see EU funding, which is distributed rather evenly. And when we refer to the studies mentioned above in the beginning, which provided for factors affecting FDI, we can clearly see that agglomeration effect on FDI inflows is visible, with capital city and vicinities being a dominating factor. Similarly, we can see marked differences between inland and border districts, or districts closer to the state capital and remote districts, while the differences in EU funding at the same time are less pronounced. And in distance breakdown, remote districts receive even more EU funding. And these findings we can adjust. They are in line with previous research, which points towards dominance of border and distance as the factors which negatively influence FDI inflows. So our initial superficial conclusion from the instrumental variable regressions about targeting larger inflows of FDI with the simple unstructured increasing of EU funding would be erroneous. And of course, we need to consider these third factors mentioned above from the research on the determinants of FDI inflows. These factors should be considered for modifying the structure of funding accordingly to be enclosed in future rural development policies. These might include elaboration of policy measures that target the improvements in human capital and infrastructure in vulnerable spatial segments. And also we have to take into account checking the dead weight. If a substantial dead weight is detected for investment support, the activities within the measures designed for education and creation of job opportunities have to be addressed. Funding less favorable areas in terms of FDI inflows with emphasis on infrastructure, human capital, and other special determinants of FDI like manufacturing clusters has to be considered. And so we can conclude that initial hypothesis can be rejected as the EU funding has positive net impact on rural districts. And the impact is substantial and statistically significant. And we must take into account that confounded third factors might exist which affect negatively FDI in rural districts. So, and the structure of the support by EU funds has to be revised to put emphasis on infrastructure projects and cluster forming. And also we have to always remember that we have to estimate the potential deadweight effects for various types of interventions. So that make sure that the allocation of funds is more targeted towards beneficial environs for FDI improvement. If we need if we consider that FDI is beneficial for the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Let me see the chat box. No, but I have a question about this FDI. I'm from a bit different field, not economics. So my understanding of FDI is that simple, like some companies buy the stocks from Latvian company and they are foreign, right? For example, what was the reason for this hypothesis that you thought that EU funding on infrastructure or something like that can impact that? I don't know, some foreign companies possibly don't want to invest or don't perform FDI. What was the idea? Do you see any concerns that, for example, I understand that one thing you mentioned, that if we don't properly use EU funding for, let's say, different purpose, not like developing infrastructure to promote, let's say we improve the city roads and stuff like that, and then companies want to buy the stocks of some Latvian company because there's good roads and like good environment, which we done by EU funding. But what was the initial reason? What was the concern? Why do you think it could be impacting actually negatively?
This was you can say that was purely accidentally, because we were making a broader research on rural districts in terms of economic development, connectivity, human development, and services in terms of EU funding. We tried to find out how EU funding impacted the variables in these four groups. But the FDI initially was neglected. It was not included in initial set of variables which are characterizing the rural development. And as FDI always, economists always complain that in this or that year, FDI has shrunk in Latvia, and that is considered as a bad news. So if FDI is considered to be beneficial to economy, so it depends. I think that the issue of FDI is rather controversial, because in 1990s it happened that foreign companies simply bought Latvian food processing enterprises and shut them, and labor employment was lost, and they decided just for closing these enterprises and instead importing the products from other facilities they had in other countries.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. So far, I don't see any other questions. Okay, thank you for presentation.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Let's proceed for the last plenary session presentation, and this is by Juris Burlakos with plenty of other authors, and the topic is towards beyond the zero waste concept, innovative solutions for valorization of fine residual waste fraction from landfills, rare earth elements potential. Complex title. Let's see the presentation. Thank you. And the floor is yours.
Hello, dear participants. It's nice to meet you 11th time straight year. So under different affiliations, I'm again here. So a little bit about our research. We have here the team all around the Baltic Sea. Not the whole authors was possible to put here. This study is almost 10 years straight happening all the time, and this is just a small part of everything. And we decided just to screen test what about the rare earth elements. You as IT specialists probably know why they are used. So they are used a lot of in electronics and renewable energies, and so we considered this topic as interesting one. And by that also I have the student, which is number 2 here, Ruta Ozoldaridana. She soon will defend her PhD thesis about the clay assorbents. And as we know, around the Baltic Sea, especially in Latvia, we have a lot of clay, which is not used after Soviet Union collapse. Then we made the bricks and a lot of other stuff for the agriculture, pipes and so on. But the clay is abandoned now, and if you go to Kaunsiems or Kuprava or somewhere else, just a few places in Latvia are used for the clay. So we also wanted to test if we can do some added value for the clay assorbents, in this case for rare earth elements, so we can clean up the leachate, and probably in the future we can use something out of the landfills, which leaches out. Then we catch the pollutants, and probably with not a very big profit, but at least we can use them, because the landfills, if we consider them as For reuse or recycle in the circular economy, we use a lot of other things as well. So this could be the bonus. It's not like we just take the rare earths and make a really big development and the profit. By that also, the rare earth elements are very strategic. They are considered as critical materials in European Union. As you know, the tensions on the markets of China, USA, and so on. About 90% or something like that, rare earth elements are coming from China because no one else wants to deal with them. It's a really huge environmental concern. They are not toxic, but the way how to separate these rare earth elements, because they are so friendly chemical elements, it's really like PDF of 5 pages of very toxic solvents which you shall use in mining, just to separate them to be possible to use. So, and here I represent the Poland. At the moment, I have the project in Mineral and Energy Economy Research in Polish Academy of Science from the March this year. And this is one of small topics I'm dealing with. The value of landfills, I'm talking so much about the rare earths, how rich we will have, the FDI index will go up and everything like that from clay assortments and rare earths from the landfills. Of course, it's a little bit like advertising. Here we have just a screening study, but the study of landfills per se started what to do and how to close these landfills. There was a period in Latvia when you had to close them according to the European Union directives, considering the filtration parameters, so the precipitation doesn't go in, so the leachate doesn't go out. So you collect the biogas in the bigger ones. In the smaller ones, you just use the excavator and just dump them smaller, something like that. I have traveled a lot in small closed dump sites. About in Latvia, I haven't visited all of them. It's like 550 closed dumps from the former times. Now you know it's like 5 or 6. They are changing this number from 10 to 5, plus one hazardous waste landfill. But we still have these 545. So, and they were closed, like they were closed at that time, like according to the directives, at least formally. But here we have the talk about the zero waste and even the beyond the zero waste concept, because this material in landfills is already lost to the society. And we can consider that as the stock for the future. And we never know how the legislation and the European or worldwide or whatever changes. And the counting on these dumps, which still are there, could be as the stock for the future. Nevertheless, if we use them or not, anyway, the pollution is still there. The methane gas is flowing out anyway, and the research is necessary. So probably in 10 or 20 years, when my son will be here in this conference, he will tell how to deal with them correctly. just kidding. The challenge of the future is landfill mining. The landfill mining is the same mining, but in a smaller scale. Formally smaller scale. It's about how to dig the dumps out and how do we separate. So the first thing is to remove the contamination flow out. So this is about the ecosystem services, so we preserve the environment. The second thing, if it's in the city, we have a lot of landfills worldwide which are in the cities, like in Istanbul or New York. And you imagine how much costs the real estate in New York or the center of Istanbul. It's like the cemeteries in Middle Ages. You have the dumps in vicinities of the cities, but the city grows. And the city grows around the landfill. So the second thing is the real estate we can consider as the value. But to consider as the real value, we need to remediate that revitalization of the area. You cannot build on the landfill. It's like illegally in Philippines, every year somebody goes with the landslide down these illegal cities in the dumps. It doesn't work very well. And still, if you do the revitalization, then you deal with all the content inside, like you see in the picture. this is a very beautiful picture. It's like electronic waste a lot. So it could be a lot of valuable material there. But usually this material is not so valuable. It contains like 30% of plastic in the best case, which you can burn to get the energy. And about the 50% is the inert waste. Inert waste, it means like degraded organics plus mineral stuff. And this also can contain macro elements and also the rare earths. So this was the scope of the studies. So we wanted to estimate the fine fraction of waste for the deal to functional construction materials, so we can close these landfills not with the material which you take the geotextile or raw material from somewhere mined out, but just to use the landfill itself to close it with the own material. So we don't spend the raw material resource. This means functional construction material. So then we deal with possible leaching and emissions of the methane and leaching of the metals. So, and the master plan idea is the keeping the dump site revitalization. And by the way, we deal also with this rare earth elements and other actually elements as well, which is not in this study here, but we analyzed absolutely everything what is inside the teddy bear. So topicality is the work aimed to explore the concentration of various elements. We took the landfills in Estonia, because Estonia, I hope in Latvia also will be so open waste companies who will open their landfills for the research and promote the tractors for free, and because you cannot go with the spade and just to dig. It's not possible. Everything is compacted there, and even the copper wire, you cannot take it out like it was in the 90s by the people who burned the wires and took the metal outside. It's not possible anymore. Now you need to excavate, and then you sort this waste, and then you see what is in different size fractions, the big fractions, the smaller fractions, and the fine fraction. So my research mostly is about the fine fraction. Here, all of that stuff about the legislation, how we deal with the European sustainable development goals, and so on, circular economy. So here is just to visualize how this separation is having site. It's not a big difference from the big mining. The big mining of like resources, of course, is more efficient because you have bigger percent of the ore inside. But here I just remind that the main is not the recycling of the material, but the main is to remove these contaminated sites. And if it's in the city, it's also the real estate. So anyway, you need to remove everything, resort, reuse what is inside, and what is left, you cover with the landfill material itself. So you have the beyond the zero waste circular economy principle. So yes, there are different kind of this landfill mining. These projects has taken place in different parts of the world, starting from USA and Belgium and finishing with India. And the last where I participate, which I know was in Estonia, in Saaremaa Island. And the Saaremaa Island, they had a very interesting case. There is no clay in Saaremaa Island. There is just 30 centimeters of soil, and you actually cannot close this landfill properly. And then they had the dilemma what to do. And very fast, in 3 years with municipality, they deal that they close this landfill with the fine fraction from the landfill itself. So this was what I was talking about, this landfill mining. We did a lot of experiments of this waste to energy, how to make a plastic from plastic fences from the plastic inside the landfill, the old landfill, it's not the new landfill. And then a lot of experiments with this fine fraction, which I continue also now. About the rare earths, where do they come from? So basically in landfill mining, they come from electronical waste. The newer the landfill, the less you will have them. So basically the old landfills, if you want to remove them, will have a lot of more interesting elements like platinum group elements, rare earths, color metals, and so on. So and there are a lot of parallels how to deal with the mining process. It's the same like a process, but here you have a lot of more in mining, the big mining. And here in the landfills, you don't deal with so big amounts. Even if the landfill is big, you need to consider other ways how to remove them. And when you have that in the leachate groundwater pollution, therefore we wanted to test the sorbents, and we chose the clay sorbents. Here it's about the criticality of elements. You see the economic importance, supply risk, and the rare earths you see in the upper side with platinum group elements. They're the highest economic importance and with the highest supply risk, which basically means that we need to find a way how to get from everywhere these things. Otherwise, when China blocks the rare earths, like in 2011, for example, the price of europium, it's an element of rare earths, it jumped in 1 hour 100 times, not for 100%, but 10,000%. So it means that it's just Xi Jinping says something, we have the quota, and you can do what you want, and you need to buy it for any price, because it's like with sanctioned Russia now. You don't have the small thing, and your train is not going anywhere. The same with the rare earths. There is a lot of industries where even I don't know where they are used. So if this supply risk arises, we have the problem. Here about the PhD study of Ruta Davidane. She studied the sorbents, not only for rare earths, but the thing how she developed the sorption material was that this was the modified clay, modified organic clay, and we tested how to remove the rare earths from aquatic solutions. So it was like controlled experiments. And clay sorbents, the main result was that it is possible to use them. So the sorbents to hunt for rare earths, it's like you take the clay, then you synthesize the sorbent in the lab, you test it in aquatic environment, the rare earth removal, and then if it goes industrial, later in some stage, you do the rare earth recovery. And by the way, it's not only the landfills where you can use these things, you can also use these results also in industry, because they have secondary waters from the mining, and you can use these sorbents for the removal of different kind of elements. This is not valid only for landfills. It's like fundamental research a bit. So the materials and methods, very shortly, there's field sampling and preparations. In Estonian case, we sorted on the belt ourselves 13 tons of waste, including the shit flowing on the belt and fishing nets, dead animals, and even we didn't find it, but the tractor found a Second World War bomb. So the landfills are not very safe for the mining. You always need to be cautious because you can find everything there. Then already prepared and sorted samples, we did the sequential extraction. It's like chemical laboratory experiment where you test the different solvents to see how strong these elements are bound to the organic material and colloidal fractions. It means that how easy is to separate them, the main question. Then the parallel stage was sorbent development with synthetic hydroxyapatite and sorption experiments per se. And in this case, we tested the lanthanum, cerium, and neodymium from the solutions removal, and it was determined by sorption isotherms with different concentrations. So the results, to go to the results from fractionation analysis by this extraction I mentioned, this North Estonia landfill have shown a wide range of elements, a lot of calcium, iron, aluminium, magnesium, and following, but microelements, considering very close to the mining areas actually. So there is a slight also potential for the certain rare earths, and the absolute numbers ranges tens of ppms. It's like 100,000 times divided part approximately. So here are just some details about the concentrations and agitation and how it went up, and some kind of isotherms and equilibrium concentrations. This is more about the PhD student. I will leave that for her PhD defense. But the main result is that these sorbents are improving the removal of this. It's possible to remove, and study approved the paradigm of recovery of possible lost material in dumps and wastewater discharges. So meaning by that it's possible not only the rare earths, but also other elements. So we clean up from cadmium, chromium, nickel, and other stuff, which is good for industry, but not good for the environment if we just do it as a leachate out. And it is possible with the modified clays. This is only initial state of the research, but I believe that huge amount of the clay, which we still don't use now with reindustrialization, reimagination of economy, or whatsoever they call it, I think that this mining of the clay should have the added value, not only for the brick making, but also for something smarter, probably. Probably there are a lot of more things where the clay with colloidal properties can be used in electronics and in other stuff. This I don't know. So it might be of interest to enhance material recovery, and the main is that the circular economy perspective. We diminish the energy consumption. We use the material which we have on site. We don't have to import. And we clean up the environment if we use these approaches for the leachate treatment. So, and basically the zero waste is good, but beyond the zero waste, it's developed by me, this idea with a Swedish professor and some other professors. This beyond the zero waste concept must be developed and improved, not only on rare earths, but in general. Beyond the zero waste, it means that we just don't use the zero waste, but we take the waste with the negative, like from the dumps, which already are waste in the historical way. So thank you for the attention. I enjoy the visiting of different country landfills and izgāstu veslēkta you see here, and please write to me if you have any questions, any collaboration initiatives, and we work together with the engineering, not engineering, but what was the name of the faculty? LIF in English, I don't know. Rural engineering faculty, I believe. So we have a very good contact, and we have a good ideas. So please contact us if you have any kind of interest in these topics. Thank you very much. If you have any questions. I already spent all the coffee break, I think. I hope it was a bit of interesting to listen to this imagination.
Thank you for interesting presentation. We have one hand raised from Joris Hasners.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
This presentation was very comprehensive in terms of chemistry and mining techniques, but I have two or three questions. I have an impression that this mainly concerns the past mistakes of civilization, and dealing with the landfills means that we are mining the existing stock of potential stock of rare minerals. But what is the plan for the future to prevent these rare elements going to landfills? And do you have any kind of cost benefit analysis, how much it would cost and what would be gains and potential in terms of euros in money, how much it would cost, and how much we will get from this, out of this? Does the benefits outweigh the inputs used in there? Thank you.
Yes, the short answer about the rear earth is no. I mentioned here just a small part of the study. The main thing is to reduce the methane gas, which is the greenhouse gas. And this construction material from the landfill mixed with the compost, I just explained very short. You take from the landfill the fine fraction, you mix it with the compost in different concentration. It depends on some kind of chemical and geotechnical parameters, and you put it on the landfill. So the methane gas is destroyed. It's already proven. This is called biocover. So this is the long answer why it is necessary, and it's not only for the old ones. It's mainly for the new ones. And Tallinn landfill, Pärnu landfill, and Uikala landfill in North Estonia already expressed the interest for this fine fraction use, because the space of the landfills are limited, and nevertheless, of politicians and Plesh or whatever who speaks about that we will have 10% only landfill, it will not happen. It's not realistic. And the thing of the fine fraction of waste, this inert waste, which is the landfill, usually by mass, it contains almost the half or even more sometimes. So if you want 10%, you need to recycle or reuse somehow this stuff. So this was just a small student interest to see what is inside in this fine fraction, by the way. So we need to see it as the complex. The one thing is the methane gas. The second thing is the real estate, if it's in the city, if it's the old landfill, for instance. If it's the new landfill, they need the new space, because when they are full, the business is stopped. So the entrepreneur's interest is that they clean up the cell and they have the new space for the new waste. This is the business interest. This is not circular economy. It's like pure business. But if you can use what is inside the landfill, rework it, take away what is burnable, like in Tallinn, you can use for the energy. In Latvia, we don't. So the plastic is about 20-30%. You need to pay a little bit more because it's wet and you need to dry up, and they don't like this material because of calorific value. But if you want to remove it and have the landfill space, the gate fee is quite high for the new waste. So this is kind of very complicated, the system dynamics in that. From the municipality point of view, you have the problems, like you take just in Latgalia, somewhere in Karsava County alone, which was part of the Ludza now, is just the 4 landfills which are small. So if in the future you want, or legislation tells you need to take this all away somewhere, then the studies can be helpful, that you know. It's always good to have the knowledge. So this is more about the fundamental research about the rear earth. You cannot get much more than from it's not possible like more from the mining areas. So this could be the small additional bonus, and the sorbents can be used, they remove all the elements, like metallic elements. How to separate them, it's another question, and how to rework the sorbent, it's another question. But the main things is the methane gas, the greenhouse gas, because it will be more and more expensive. Then the landfill space, all this legislation which tells us that 10% only can be landfills. So the new landfills are interested in that, how to operate in the future, and they compete from each other. It's interesting, but this is pure business for them. For the Europe, it's about the methane gas in this case.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I'm feeling that both juries are up for longer discussion. that could be from economic point and from chemistry point. But thank you very much for this presentation and the questions. And this was quite interesting presentations, and we must move forward with section presentations. So have a virtual coffee or a real coffee break now. And the next section gonna be dedicated to environmental engineering, landscape architecture, and rural engineering.
And first presenter in our session is Giedre Piletsko from 3 universities of Lithuania with topic change in the area of Lithuanian wetlands from 2002 till 2021. So Giedre, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, yes, I'm Giedre Piletsko, and my presentation is change in the area of Lithuanian wetlands. The object is Wetlands of Lithuania. The aim is to perform an analysis of the change in wetland area of the Republic of Lithuania in 2002-2021. That's to be resolved to describe Lithuanian wetlands, to perform the analysis of the change in the area of Lithuanian wetlands in 2002-2021, to examine the change of wetland area in the counties of the country, to analyze the wetland restoration works and tendencies. Wetlands are described as viable terrestrial ecosystems in areas that are constantly soaked and overgrown with moisture-loving plants, where peat is constantly being built up, that is peat accumulation. There are 3 types of wetlands identified: low moors, transitional moors, and bogs. Low moors make up 71% of all wetlands area. Bogs make up 22%, and transitional moors make up only 7%. 11 of these types are associated with wetland ecosystems: natural dystrophic lakes, active wetlands, boggy marshes, swamp forests. Lithuania also has 53 types of natural habitats of European community importance, which are included in the Habitats Directive. There are 821 wetlands in Lithuanian state reserves, national and regional parks and reserves. 107 thalassological reserves have been established in Lithuania to protect typical and unique wetland complexes. 7 Lithuanian wetland complexes are of international importance and are protected by the International Ramsar Convention. The largest wetlands in Lithuania are the following: Jovita Piletsko makes up about 7,000 hectares, Čepkelių raistas around 6,000 hectares, and Didysis Tyrulis more than 4,500 hectares. Wetlands in the Baltic states are a significant element of the landscape, covering a total area of 25,000 square kilometers. But due to intensive land reclamation during the Soviet era, about 70% of Baltic wetlands are already drained and degraded. In 2021, wetlands occupied only about 1.5% of Lithuania's territory. In 2002, area of wetlands in Lithuania was 2.25% and occupied more than 147,000 hectares. This picture shows that between the years 2002 and 2021, the area of wetlands decreased by 51,000 hectares or 35%. There are 10 counties in Lithuania where areas of wetlands are unevenly distributed. According to the data of 2021, the most wetlands in Lithuania are situated in Alytus, Utena, and Vilnius counties. In the other 7 counties, wetlands account for less than 2%. The lowest number of wetlands was found in Marijampolė County. After the analysis of the change of wetland areas in the counties of the Lithuania, it can be seen that in all counties this area decreased in the period of 2002-2021. Analyzing the data of the change of wetlands as percentage, it was found that the largest decrease in this land use was in Kaunas, 67%, and Tauragė counties, 54%. The least change in the area of wetland was in Telšiai County, 15%. Some wetlands have disappeared due to natural landscape development processes, but the main cause of wetland loss is human economic activity. More than 2/3 of the wetlands in all counties of the country have become degradable peatlands. The condition of many of surviving wetlands is gradually becoming worse due to still operating drainage systems, pollution, and climate change, destabilizing the human environment and reducing the prospects for future survival. The following wetland restoration projects have been implemented in Lithuania: restoration of Puščia peatland, conservation of biological diversity in Lithuanian wetlands, restoration of the bog in Aukštumala Entomological Reserve, preservation of Amalvas and Žuvintas wetlands, restoration of wetland ecosystems in Ežerėlis peatland, renaturalization of exploited peatlands, and development of plant community restoration technologies. Life Project Peat Restore, and other projects. Currently, the country's conservationists offer polyculture as an alternative to the usual use of wetland land. Polyculture is the climate-friendly economic use of natural and restored wetlands, including the production of native wetland crops, the maintenance or restoration of the hydrological regime of natural wetland habitats, the promotion of peatland, the protection of wetland biodiversity to ensure the ecological stability of wetlands. You can see here a picture of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And Latvia and Estonia have more natural large box complexes with a strict conservation status, red color, resulting in 38% of the total wetland area in Latvia and 37% in Estonia. In Lithuania, this category of wetlands is much smaller, only 18%. Areas suitable for wetlands without restriction are mostly in Lithuania, green color, and we have here about 41% of the total wetlands area of the country, while in the other Baltic states, these areas are smaller, 21% in Latvia and 13% in Estonia. The Lithuanian Economic Recovery and Resilience Facility provides for an amount of 16 million euros to restore 8,000 hectares of drained wetlands used in agriculture. And conclusions. Lithuania has 53 types of natural habitats of European community importance, also 107 entomological reserves, 7 Lithuanian wetlands complexes are of international importance. After analysis of the change in the area of Lithuanian wetlands in 2002-2021, it was established that the area decreased by 51,000 hectares or 35%. According to the data of 2021, the most wetlands in Lithuania are situated in Alytus and Utena counties. After the analysis of the change of wetland areas in the counties, it can be seen that in all counties, this area decreased in the period of 19 years. The largest decrease in this land use was in Kaunas and Tauragė counties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and for me was surprised at such rapid decrease of wetlands. And do you have explanation why at 2002 there was such rapid drop? It was different methodology, or why there is such rapid changes?
Yeah, the reason is human economic activity and operating drainage systems.
And if you if you looked on this very nice map, it seems maybe also that climate plays some important role in case of precipitation and evapotranspiration, and maybe climate change is also make more pressure on wetlands and change these wetlands.
Some, yes, I agree, but the most human activity.
Okay, thank you. I see that Aiga raised her hand, so Aiga, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hello Giedre, thank you for your interesting presentation. I have just one small question, maybe I didn't catch that you said, but do you have some legislation in Lithuania that protects wetlands, or there is some rules how to maintain it or how to operate with them, or do you only have this future documentation in place, or maybe you already have something?
Yeah, we have laws and rules, and because we have protected areas laws that this law says that we have to protect wetlands, and because we have 7 international importance those wetlands, what is including in protected area system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so only the protected areas, wetlands, are basically maintained and managed, but other are just used as you wish.
We have programs.
Okay.
Programs, and so now we trying to recover and restore and make some programs and invest to this wetlands and avoid more decrease.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Giedre, for very interesting information, because my impression was that actually with wetlands is good everything. So you just changed that we have to worry.
It is most natural components of natural landscape, so it is very important to save them.
Yeah, and it's not easy to get back if we destroy it.
Yeah,
it's a long time. So thank you very much for presentation. So we go forward, and next presenter, Jovita Piletsko. She, since I am co-author, she gave this duty to me, and we will present our research prevalence of long-term and short-term pollution of chemical elements in the city of Jelgava. Our research is about air quality and Jelgava city, and actually we do this job since 2017. Each winter we collect samples to analyze air pollution in Jelgava city, and our aim is to analyze distribution of heavy metals in Jelgava city urban environment. And here you can see location of Jelgava city, but also with these blue dots, there is monitoring points. In each point, we collect snow samples, and we try to make this coverage of Jelgava area as good as possible, especially with focus on this transport corridors and also this living environment and some industrial areas, that we collect as much information as possible with snow samples. And each winter we collect 180 samples and 3 reference samples from natural area, from natural forest. And then we make analysis of heavy metals. In this study, we analyzed copper, nickel, lead, magnesium, and zinc. And after we get this soil sample analysis, we used geographical information systems and made maps where we show what is distribution of each of metal in Jelgava city. And here you can see cuprum. It is a result from 4 years cumulative result, and you can see that actually mostly in Jelgava city this cuprum is not very often in soil samples, and these concentrations are quite low. But cuprum mostly come from oil and fossil material burning. And you can see anyway we have some red dots. In middle, this red dot is related with quite high activity in this Satiksmes Street region, and also this red dot in border, east border on Jelgava city. It's also related with industrial activities. If we talk about nickel, sources of nickel is wastewater treatment and utilization of sewage sludge, also metal industry and firework. And actually in this 4 years analysis, we find one red dot very close to north border of Jelgava city. And after analyzing results, we realized that not far is Brakšķi, this waste disposal place, and in this area there is some local activities which are related with metal industry, and we think that this maybe give this very high nickel concentration, but it's quite far from city center, and we will keep look on this red dot to see what will happen in next years. If we talk about lead, situation is not so nice because lead is source are different. It's waste burning, wastewater treatment and utilization, also metal industry, firework, burning of oil and fossil materials, and also transport. And here you can see that actually these lead concentrations are higher around this transport corridors, which is direction from Riga to Dobele, and also direction to Eleja, to Lithuania border. And also in city center, this red dot is related with train station and train transport activities. And actually, we have to think about this lead issue. These concentrations are not so high that they can impact our health in that moment, but still we have to think how to develop our urban areas to maybe to reduce this transport pressure on city. I think a good solution will be this north bridge in front of Loka Magistrale, which will remove this transport at least from Riga Street, and we will not get this red dot in this Riga Street area. And also about magnesium, it's waste burning, firework, and also burning of oil and fossil materials. And this picture is quite similar with lead. Also highlights these transport corridors, and we can see that these materials are related, and these directions we have to take in mind when we plan our development of our city. And if we talk about zinc, we find also one red dot, but in general in the city this material is not very often in snow samples. And also we think that there is some evidence of metal industry in this Aviation Street region, where is developed complex of different kind of producing. But in general, in case of zinc, we don't have to worry about this air quality. Only check what is happening in this Aviation Street region. And if we talk in general about our findings, we see that where this density of population is higher, also this is higher, also this heavy metal concentrations, especially if we talk about lead and magnesium. And this air quality, it's still, we see this evidence of low quality fuels. And also we see evidence from heating of residential buildings, because sometimes we even don't know what people use for these heating systems. And the largest is the red dot is in this Aster Street, which is very close to Satiksmes Street, this region where is this high traffic all around, and also Igate road companies is complex, and also very close is Kulk, this complex machinery where this traffic is higher than maybe in other areas in the city. And one thing which is really good for Jelgava city is that we have these open areas, especially Lielpa River and Driksa River. They help to breathe our city, and for us it also was surprised that actually this pollution is not very concentrated in city center where is open areas, but more in areas where is let's call it these street canyons when around is high housing and quite in high density of housing. And in this study we used this snow sampling method, but in future we would like to develop other methods which we can use also during summertime when we can collect some dust from air and analyze this situation, and also some bioindicators like Lichia, which show us also a lot about air quality. So thank you very much. It's a nice view from our office, and we are catching snow in this moment. So thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have shared these research results with some local, I don't know, local government maybe, or maybe someone in Jelgava to actually to point out where is the problem areas and maybe to do something with that? Because obviously there is some problem in the industry regions maybe, or something needs to be changed.
Actually, we started this research because we have this project with Jelgava city, and they initiated this research, and it was so interesting that we followed, and actually we share these results, and we also talk about it. But this urban planning is not so flexible process. It's quite difficult, but they take in account our findings about air quality, and in Jelgava each 10 years there is also inventory of Lichia, and from Lichia we also can find some evidence of air quality changes in Jelgava city. So we work together. So thank you. Jānis, you have question. I see you raised hand.
I want to ask about the preparation of samples. What is the principle and how those metals transferred to the air? It's during particles, solid.
Yeah. If we talk about sampling, we collect samples, then we transport to laboratory.
How long time is for snow?
This disposal time is 5 days, approximately 5 days. It depends on
how many samples from one place?
3 samples from one place.
In season?
No, we take once a winter. No, only once each winter. Once we take a sample, and we take 3 samples from one place, just to reduce this.
Okay.
And then we use this nitrate acid to
make solutions,
make acidification, and get these metals out of small particles, and then we analyze.
In Riga, we are collecting particles really and looking in microscope because it's possible way also to define the origin after the particle form.
Yeah, I saw in one conference also these pictures. How does it look like? Is it some ash or other kind of dust? So it was also interesting, but we don't use this mechanical evaluation, but maybe it's in future together with these metals, it would be very good, because then we can talk about sources.
Yeah, it is a topic of Iveta Stenberg from University of Latvia.
Yeah.
Thank you for answers.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are running on time. So next presenter will be Aiga. So Aiga, please.
Thank you very much. So you already started to mention the rivers in the cities that can provide us with some good air and everything. So I will continue on kind of the same direction. So yeah. Okay, welcome and hello everyone. I'm Aiga, and today I will introduce you with my research topic, which is using the ecosystem services approach to assess the landscape quality. And to begin with, I want to introduce you with the ecosystem services in general, what it means, and what is the classification of those. So basically, ecosystem services are the benefits, the goods, the services that we as humans and as a society derive from the natural environment, directly or indirectly. And usually the ecosystem services are divided in sections. The sections depend on the source you are taking it as a reference, but usually it's provisioning services, regulating and maintenance services, and cultural services. I will introduce you with that some later. But the assessment of these services is the complex activity that mainly uses and combines different assessment methods, for example, analysis of statistical data, analysis of geospatial data, some expert and public surveys and evaluations, etc. So ecosystem services basically now are top topic and a worldwide approach to assess the potential of natural environment and to understand the benefits that we as society get from the natural environment, and in order to enable the more effective decisions to be made in the future about the land use and decision-making, support the decision-making in general. So this research was a literature review in the beginning of my PhD topic. So the aim of this study was to analyze the current experience in Europe and in using the ecosystem service approach in the context of landscape assessment. And in a parallel with the goal, the following key questions were answered. So which groups of ecosystem services were included in this landscape assessment? Which methods were used to perform the assessment? What was the main indicators or criteria? And what data were used for the specific evaluation? So I will answer the key questions in this presentation and introduce you with the results. But to begin with, I want to explain the flow chart of how this method worked and what was I doing. So the first step was to define the key questions. The key questions were based on the problem that are actually which is on point now, and what was the knowledge gap until now. So after the definition of the key questions, I defined and selected the keywords, which was corresponding the best to the key questions. After the selection of the keywords, I did a research of articles in the Web of Science and Scopus databases to sort out the articles that correspond to my keywords. And after that, I defined some selection criteria. Obviously, landscape is really specific in different geographical regions. So I chose only Europe as a reference point. And also, there are some other criteria were selected. After the selection of the criteria, I reviewed the articles based on those criteria, and to do actual analysis of the data and analysis of the articles, I prepared an information database in order to answer the key questions, which information I need to extract from these articles. And then analysis of the selected articles, I read each and every article of the selected articles and fill the information in the database. And after the database was filled and done, then answering the key questions were were the main result of this research, and also, of course, production of tables, visual materials, etc. And then, and with that, I will introduce you now. So the first key question was which ecosystem services were analyzed, and so as I mentioned, ecosystem services are divided in the group in sections, and this division is based on the classification of international classification of ecosystem services, and division is divided in 3 sections. I have to mention in the beginning that these numbers in the columns correspond to the number of times specific element was appearing in the article, not the number of articles. So, but yeah, to begin with ecosystem services. So ecosystem services groups, the most assessed ecosystem service group was cultural ecosystem services, the mostly corresponding to the the first column, which was due to the sense of place, beauty of nature, and researching the nature. So few of those were analyzed, and that includes in the first category. From the regulation and maintenance section, it was the most assessed ecosystem service group was dealing with the regulation of the baseline flows and extreme events, which means basically protecting us from flooding and heat island effects, and etc. And provisioning ecosystem service section was assessed only 2 times, mostly dealing with the agricultural land as whole and the presence of it in the landscape. So to answer the second key questions, what methods were used? I also divided the methods in groups, in group categories, because obviously groups are these methods are named differently, but basically the method is the same. So the first. The most used method, the group, was statistical analysis, which is understandable because ecosystem services deals with a lot of information and a huge amount of data. So nowadays, obviously, most of the ecosystem services and most of the data are processed in the computed software, so and not done by hand anymore, so that's obvious. The second most assessed used method group was questionnaires, surveys, and workshops. And what surprised me of this results that basically landscape evaluation of the landscape quality only 2 times was done by field observations. That means that only 2 times the actual experts or researchers were in the landscape to evaluate its quality. So that's interesting that most of the ecosystem services, in order to see the landscape quality, is done in front of computer or on paper, which is interesting fact. Okay, so the third key question were what indicators or criteria were used for the evaluation, and to understand this more correctly, I divided these indicators in 3 sections. So the first section corresponds to the landscape function, which includes land use and landscape elements. For example, presence of the agricultural land, presence of forest, presence of hedges and ditches and lakes and etc. And then the second most assessed, the most used indicator, it was in the landscape character section was ecological parameters, which is mostly corresponding to the biological diversity. Either either there is a data in the background for this evaluation, or it's done in the field. But also some cultural heritage attributes and visual landscape characteristics are included in this section. And then the last section was landscape perception, which makes me really happy that a lot of articles actually pay attention to the sensory perception of the landscape from the human and society point of view, which is actually only in the last few years are getting more popular, and which is interesting that actually this is the main point, especially after the COVID pandemic, that we actually how we perceive the landscape and how we are using the landscape in everyday basis. So, and the last key question was to understand what data was used for this evaluation and assessment in order to understand if this method can be repeated. And almost all of the analyzed articles used different types of geospatial data. Either it was publicly available as Corine or Sentinel or etc., or it was some geospatial data from local governments. Obviously, local government spatial data were more detailed and more sophisticated, but and obviously those articles that use this kind of data can be more precise and more detailed in general. And then also some social media image database methods and data were used, which was interesting to see how new technologies are coming into in our field, and how can we use the social media images in our benefit. And in conclusion, I want to say that actually this small amount of articles that I got from the selection of articles indicates that the ecosystem services approach for assessing the quality of landscape in Europe is still really underused. And most of the studies of landscape assessment are in relation to ecosystem services focus on the visual quality of the landscape rather than taking a look into the quality of the landscape as a whole, not only the visual effect of it. And so basically all the evaluations about landscape perception criteria in studies are mostly analyzed during the field studies, but carried out by evaluators, experts, and only the few studies focus on analyzing the population's perception of the landscape. And obviously when you have previously established and accumulated databases collected beforehand, it's really useful and useful for the future research and future some kind of development of various studies, and it can really be helpful to track changes in landscape and in landscape quality in general. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Aiga. So actually you made this first research on what is happening, and you see that actually you are on first wave of evaluation, so you can develop methods, you can combine methods. And how do you think which of those methods you will use in future in your work?
Yeah, as I see that actually obviously I can use geospatial data in general because it's getting more and more accurate in nowadays, but I personally think that it's not enough. I cannot evaluate the quality of the landscape only sitting from the computer and not actually going into the nature, because now we have a different kind of project that dealing with the landscape evaluation but in different direction, but we still go out in the field works and in the field observations, and we see that actually the things that we kind of thought it's true in the computer or in the geospatial data, it's not always true in the field, in the nature, in the landscape actual. So I think I will combine some kind of geospatial data and also some kind of field evaluation, but I would love to include also some kind of these new technologies, new maybe social media pictures or something like that, to make to put my feet in the door also for this new kind of new methods and new ways of researching the landscape. So
yeah, thank you. I think this combining is, and you find new things which you couldn't find with this regular methods, and it's good that we can go further in future. So thank you very much, Aiga. We are all in right time. So I see that nobody raised hand. Then next presenter is Dace Gražule from local municipality, but again, she's already integrating our research results in real life. And I will present our common research work, challenges of development of lowland river ecosystem services in the context of sustainable development goals. So actually we follow with this topic, ecosystem services, and this research work was done together in a group because for a local municipality, they develop this sustainable development strategies, and we looked on ecosystem services, lowland rivers, which are in Jelgava local municipality, many of them, and how they cope with sustainable development goals, and which ecosystem services we have to promote and to develop, and with these ecosystem services we help ourselves to go to the sustainable development goals. So this context, of course, is this United Nations Assembly Agenda 2030 with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which actually is quite confusing for, still it's confusing for people, because if we look separately on each of goal, we can see how to reach them. But if we look together on 17 goals, which we have to reach with the same speed and with the same activity, it's not so easy. And also for local governments, it's quite difficult to understand how to integrate these goals in local policies, and how to manage these ecosystems, and how to provide and support these ecosystem services. And the aim of study was to analyze the opportunity to provided by ecosystem services of Sveta River in Jelgava municipality level in context of a United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we chose this Sveta River catchment area, which is located in Jelgava local municipality, and we made analysis for all this for ecosystem services, and also for this in context of these Sustainable Development Goals. And how we evaluate ecosystem services, it is structure and function of the ecosystem. We clarify these ecosystem services in case of relevance for society, and of course this economical dimension also stay in this context. And we divided this ecosystem services in three big groups: supply services, which is different kind of products, fish and so on; environmental and support services, which is related with water balance in system, air quality, water quality, and so on. And the final group was cultural services, which are more related with historical buildings, but also with tourism industry and so on and so forth. And we looked more from local municipality point of view, and Dace was most important expert from local municipality. And here you can see this result in our paper. It will be in better quality, but you can see here that for each sustainable development goal, we shortly described what is what's where the river can give for this sustainable development goal. And here on sites, you can see support services, environmental ecosystem services, and cultural services. And for each of this ecosystem services group, you can see for which goal, which ecosystem services we have to support and provide to get this total sustainability of our local government. And here you can see some examples. I will explain some examples. For example, this first sustainable development goal is related with a reduction of poverty. And here is a historical building where is no developed spa center. And actually this Svet River is like point of attraction, which attract people, and also for local enterprises there is some income. And on other picture you can see small hydropower station. We know that we have some discussions about small hydropower station, how big is this gain in point of electricity and so on. But we try to analyze it, not only this hydropower station, but also this water reservoir is gives additional ecosystem services. And then, of course, for human wealth and wellness, water and river is always good. Especially during summertime, but we know that people swim also during winter. But you can see that in this right side, in this picture, that municipality already provides some places, controlled places for swimming, and develop these places that this welfare goal can be at least reached by some steps. And of course, this living in water. Here you can see these good examples when local municipality provide and support this fish resource development, and keep this fish resource in river. And also, if we look on river as part of our territory, of our landscape, and part of our ecosystem, river plays very important role to provide biodiversity also in this terrestrial ecosystems. And we know in these points when water ecosystem meets with terrestrial ecosystems, there is the highest biodiversity. So this means river provide us possibility to develop higher biodiversity, but still we have to manage it, because sometimes there is some invasive species, or sometimes there is too much overgrown this coast, and it is also already this advices to local municipality how they can to develop this ecosystem. And finally, water quality and healthy ecosystem and the restoration of biodiversity will benefit not only in freshwater ecosystems, but also for downstream users, including fast-growing cities and marine life and coastal areas and oceans. The ecosystem services of freshwater ecosystem play important role in providing stability and sustainability for region, and development and promotion of ecosystem services by local municipalities will force achievement of sustainable development goals. And thank you very much. And here you can see our nice palace and lowland river close to it. And I hope together we will develop our ecosystem services more, and we will make more such research, which is also gain for local municipalities. So thank you. And maybe some questions or comments?
I have one question. Maybe I didn't catch in the beginning the method that you use. Basically, you have like an expert evaluation, basically counting in which spots each of these ecosystem services are present. Am I correct, or there was some other method?
Actually, we used expert method. We made two matrix for experts to evaluate ecosystem services in Jelgava local municipality, and also we made another matrix where experts evaluated this ecosystem services impact on sustainable development goals.
Okay, so two separate evaluations, basically.
Yeah, and finally we get this nice picture, but we can just see this picture, but not all this big work which is under this job. But that's now already finalized this master thesis. And she developed also guidelines for local municipality how to promote these ecosystem services. And since she works in local municipality, she already started to integrate these ideas in local rules, and she looks how to support these ecosystem services in local municipality level.
Great. I will need to take a look at that master thesis. You will have to share that with me.
You remind me by email, and I can send when she will make final defense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe other comments? If I see nobody raise a hand, maybe then I can ask Eva Kraukle. I see you are here, and together with your colleagues Ilze Stockmann and Christine Vugule, you did great job legal framework of urban forestry management in Latvia. So please, floor is yours. Excellent.
Thank you very much. The subject of the article I'm talking about today is the legal framework of urban forestry management in Latvia. And urban forestry is a relatively new branch where such issues as planning, governments, and management of urban forests play important role, considering special managing of urban or suburban territories. The research was done to find out the extent to which urban forests are reflected in European and Latvian regulatory enactments and planning documents, as well as to define the main recommendations for further actions. Therefore, the regulatory enactments and planning documents of Urban Union and Latvia were studied. Although the research showed the urban forests do not have any specific regulatory and planning framework at European and Latvian scale. In both European and local strategies, the forest issues as such as the issues of urban forests is particular appeared as general. Indirect issues usually as matters of biodiversity, preservation, and environmental sustainability. The authors believe that an urban forest is a natural, semi-natural, or artificial ecosystem at all stages of its development, dominated by trees that can reach higher of at least 7 meters and have current or potential crown projections of at least 20% of forest stand. Forest, which serves public outdoor space within outside urban administrative boundaries, where the primary social and environmental functions require regular maintenance and renewal, preserving of enhancements of soil, aesthetic, cultural, and economical values of the territories. It was a territory. Public materials and methods we used. This one of the first is public available regulatory enactments and planning documents of the European Union and Latvia applicable to forest and especially for urban forest issues were analyzed. The bibliography method was used for studies of literature and other documents. The planning documents of Ikšķile, Ogre, and Jūrmala were selected for the study because the urban forest areas are located in a large part of the territory of these municipalities, and therefore it is useful for study to the local planning documents of these territories. Next slide shows some of the most important documents of international framework. The international, especially European regulatory framework, is important a regulatory instrument in Latvia. Sometimes it serves as a basis of the provision of local laws. Urban forests do not have any specific regulatory standards and planning framework. The European Commission's recognized green infrastructure as one of the planning tools. Forest legislation has always been and still is a part of the forest policies. Urban forestry, it is a cross-sectoral and cross-disciplinary concept. The few next slides show some most important documents of national framework, the Latvian framework. Laws and cabinet regulations contains already more specific information on forests, but the concept of urban forest does not yet appear. Although forests located in or near urban areas are definitely mentioned, forest protection zones around cities. A failure to single out urban forest makes it difficult to identify the specific functions and consequently to ensure the proper management. Local planning documents and binding regulations and the strategic level mention forests in the general terms when referring to the forests located on the territory, and also indirectly mentioning special protected areas. As indicated in Table 1, separately allotted forest areas may not appear in the territorial plans at all. They are included in the maps under other names, green space or natural and green areas. The name urban forest does not appear at all, but it would be the most correct way to define the forest areas located in the cities or nearby. Also, demonstrating the special functions of urban forest. The territorial planning documents have been selected from Ikšķile and Ogre, which is the territorial reform. Ikšķile is included in the territory of Ogre County. And Jūrmala city as these areas contain territories of urban forests. Even they do not have right now specific title being in an urban forest territories. And they can be used as the pilot territories in Latvia to examine urban forestry management in the future. In summary, summarizing the above, the shame was created. The hierarchy of regulatory enactments and planning documents related to the urban forests. And Europe scale resolutions, conventions, and conferences, all of strategy documents are very general and therefore can be applied in general to the necessary areas, including urban forests. Considering the international conventions and resolutions, national scale planning documents are also very general and mention forest in some case only, never singling out urban forest, which in some case are more important regular forests given their location in the urban environment, when the contribution of biodiversity is especially important. Reviewing the above regulatory enactments and planning documents, it is necessary to introduce a unified definition of urban forests in general. There is a lack of legislation identify regular urban forests, although urban suburban forests actually exist. The emphasis of strategic planning. Forests, including urban forests, should be more specifically mentioned in the international and local legislation and planning documents, considering the essential significance in reducing CO2 emissions, providing biodiversity and social services. And thank you for the attention, and maybe some questions.
Thank you very much. It's urban forest. I think it's a topic for research, and it's this buffer between urban area and natural area, and I think it's more complex and more difficult to analyze than natural areas. And how do you think how it's possible to introduce this term in local planning? How do you think, is it even possible? Maybe
I think the one point is more popularizing. Sorry, my English not so very good. Popularizing this term, the urban forests, because it is not nowhere nav nekur noteikts. It's not
in legislative level.
Yeah, not in
I think in terminology also it's maybe.
Yes, but these forests existed really, yes. This is one point, and the next one point is put it in law system. This definition, and I think it's a way to introduce this urban forests in legislation system.
Mm-hmm. But where is this border? Which is urban forest and which is park? Do you have idea?
This one, the authors sign out this terms of this forest, but the forest is a really forest where grows trees and bushes, and it is not planting by peoples like with projects, with special project, with some special plants like flowers and others. Yeah, it is a real forest. Forest, by this definition, which we give in our presentation too, and in this, our papers too.
Okay, and then opposite, where is this border between urban forest and natural forest? Where is this
I think it's a location. I think it's location because there is not maybe not very many, but we have forests in the city territories and very close to city territories. And I think the first one, this is this the city forests, which is the location.
Okay.
In the city.
So if this forest is in city borders, it is urban.
City borders or very close by city forests. Okay. I think it's the location. Yeah.
But it's more related with planning documents and this spatial, not that you can go and see, okay, this is urban forest, this is natural. It's more related with planning documents. And
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. It's more planning documents, but and otherwise we can use this term in this law system too, in this legislation system too.
Yeah, because I think especially in these urban areas we have to define rules, what you can and what you can
do. Yeah,
and some guidelines maybe, because sometimes municipalities also don't know and maybe don't know some
deeper
result of activity what can become if we don't manage properly this areas. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for
and thank you. And then I will ask Jānis Klepers from Institute of Solid State Physics, University of Latvia, with colleagues Ilze Dimanta, Birta Sloka, and Laila Zemīte.
Okay, I will tell a little about hydrogen and why we are looking on hydrogen as a possible fuel for future. The reason is quite simple. It's global warming. Responsibles are the burning of fossil fuels mostly, and also our activities in different areas, especially emissions of CO2 and methane are important. And there is, when looking on emissions, really there is no difference between biomethane and natural gas, and only how can they be reduced is a long term by replacing them with green hydrogen in all applications. Also, European Community adopted a series of legislative proposals recently, and Latvia, I suppose, also will follow. So why hydrogen? Because it's quite clean when obtained. It's don't present on Earth because it's very light and as originated on the surface of Earth, it really goes up very quickly. But there are different methods to obtain hydrogen, and it's already in usage in industry very much. But benefits are the green methods of hydrogen obtaining, and farmers, which especially our biogas producers, have a lot of possibilities to introduce hydrogen in their work or fully switch to hydrogen fuel. research articles, some implemented project results will be discussed, and also statistical analysis of expert survey in how we can see in this picture a model project for the use of hydrogen in Haren village, Germany, received 9 million euros for support this switch to hydrogen technologies. There are some ways how this transfer can be arranged. For example, if we have biogas production and want to stop burning to produce electricity, we only burn biogas, but we want to upgrade it to biomethane and use as fuel in our cars or in central natural gas pipelines introduce. Then we need some different CO2 extraction methods from biogas developed, and the most favorable is biogas upgrading with external hydrogen. For example, if you have solar or wind power generated hydrogen, then we can introduce this hydrogen really in biomass fermentation tank and in the presence of special hydrogenotropic methanogens, hydrogen and carbon from carbon dioxide comes together and forms a methane. So it's a quite good biogas upgrading method. And already in some commercialization level, not quite high, but successful projects also are showed. Another way is really switch from biogas, biomethane production to biohydrogen. It means that you, in your fermentation tank, produces really not methane but hydrogen, and this process is still developing because low productivity just now of microalgae, they are best just now, it's fine. Also oxygen sensitivity, operational costs, and inadequate insights in strain capacity hinders the commercialization yet. But those topics are developing, and in future it supposed it will be quite popular. Really, application of hydrogen, green hydrogen in farms, I will show in 2 prototype projects. One is winery, where the hydrogen is replacing diesel in all-terrain vehicle. And this hydrogen is produced from solar photovoltaic electricity by electrolysis and is collected into high pressure tanks to make the driving electric vehicle, which is modified with fuel cells and corresponding hydrogen filling station. This was small benefit, but much larger benefit is hydrogen fueled farm at all. And for example, these farms are making biogas on the base of methane and is used only how we in Latvia, for the production of electricity, and average farm with 2 harvesters, 3 tractors, 4 trucks, and ammonia fertilizer plant in 1 year needs 22 tons hydrogen, what need to produce electricity is 1.2 gigawatt hours. What is available, I suppose, in most of our biogas producers, they are around 50, which are in Latvia. Only question is regarding infrastructure, because electric tractors, electric harvesters, electric fuel cell with hydrogen tanks, they are going. And infrastructure needs electrolyzers, high pressure cylinders, electric hydrogen, agricultural machinery, hydrogen filling station, ammonia fertilizer plant. Because ammonia fertilizer we can make on place if we have green hydrogen and nitrogen is coming from open air. Such reactors already are in commercialization and can be used. Everything is in commercialization. Also, electric hydrogen harvesters and tractors and trucks, only they could be very expensive because just still no demand. In Latvia, we have just now around 45 biogas plants in operation, and just a little bit about results, how biogas producers are looking on the exploration of hydrogen technologies in their farms. This survey was conducted in 2021, this last year beginning, and we collected answers on the 6 questions. Here are all the 6, but I suppose here is the last 3 questions, and there is some indicators of correlation analysis with person correlations, but in conclusions, we can say that analyzed cases of the introduction of hydrogen in agriculture farms shows that biogas producers in Latvia can already switch to hydrogen. Only investments would be in hydrogen infrastructure, which should be some million euros. Just now are available results of several pilot projects around all the world. And our survey results showed that the targets of biogas producers may change from the production of electricity, how it was in the beginning, when also OEK, this special tax, was available. But most biogas producers just now are considering about technology to upgrade biogas to biomethane and use it in vehicles. One biogas plant already in Latvia is doing such, and they are using trucks powered with compressed biomethane gas. But should be therefore more proactive communication from research institutions. Information availability is highly recommended by authors because, as we saw, there is very small knowledge about hydrogen technologies in those biogas producers. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much. it was a look on future, what we can do to be more sustainable. But how it is from a safety point of view to work with hydrogen, because it's really reactive thing. And how do you think?
Hydrogen is not reactive. It's similar methane, what we are using just now as natural gas. And dangerous also is not higher than compressed gas in cylinders, but when it starts burning, it's quite, especially in open area, hydrogen has very many benefits because flame is only directed on the top, and hydrogen burning is very special. There is no heat around in long distances from the flame, but very small distance. So I suppose hydrogen safety is not the problem for our usage. Especially in Latvia already we have one hydrogen filling station in Torņakalns, and hydrogen trolleybuses, the first in the world, already in Riga streets are for a couple of years already.
So actually it's in our story about education, knowledge sharing, explanation work. As you told in your last conclusions, the most important is to communication and this explanatory work. Because for me it also was this safety issue and closed topic.
It's from history. Those dirigibles with hydrogen explosions, very big. I suppose they were specially organized. And from history, there is a big problem with these safety issues of hydrogen, especially also when we are speaking about hydrogen bombs.
Yeah.
Which is not nuclear.
Yeah, and
but fusion, nuclear fusion, bombs.
And Biruta would like to say some.
Yeah. I just would like to to confirm what Jānis told, and just also say that really it is really a very big issue of education, because as in the survey we got the information that it is quite limited information for also those entrepreneurs, but it is worldwide. It is now developing very much this hydrogen use, hydrogen energy use, and I think that it is really very important that we are not lacking behind, and that's very good that really this project was supported by the Ministry of Economy as well as by the national program, and I was really very happy to participate with colleagues from Solid State Physics Institute, from Riga Technical University, as well as from Faculty of Biology. It was really a very wonderful job, but it is really a very big future for this hydrogen energy. And it's necessary really to pay more attention in education about this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also see that if we look from this air pollution point of view, hydrogen is really a good solution for transport and so on. So thank you very much, colleagues.
Dear colleagues and researchers, the time is already here when we need to start the next session of today's conference day, and I welcome you in the session of economic sciences. Enjoy economic science session. I hope that it will give you all new experiences and new ideas also in your next researches, next studies, what you're up to. So our session's first presentation is good Gunita Mazura from Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies with the topic Financial Platforms as Alternative Financial Instrument to Crediting in Europe.
I will start my presentation, and I think according to the title, you see that it's quite a complicated one. But nevertheless, I will try to do my best in order to explain at least some major points of this topic. Why I have chosen this topic? Because I think that sharing economy, or as it is also called alternative financing, constantly grows because also various digital financial activities have grown, and these activities are outside the traditional banking system, which we know, I think, very well. And alternative financial activities basically include crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending, but certainly there are several others. If we speak about Europe, sharing economy is mostly developed in several spheres. For example, in co-financing services, where probably every one of us has heard of such companies as Mintos and Twina, which is Latvia-based companies. Then passenger car services, Bolt, Uber, and guest accommodation platforms like Booking.com. If alternative financing is very popular because it allows to invest resources in various projects, the main significant drawback is that, unfortunately, these platforms are quite risky. My research aim is to try to evaluate alternative finance trends in Europe, and in order to do it, I have advanced several research tasks. First of all, to characterize different models of this type of financing, to speak a little bit in details on peer-to-peer platforms, and also to analyze volumes of types of alternative finance market. Period for the analysis covers the years from 2013 up to 2020, because these are basically the recent data. But where it's possible, I will provide more detailed analysis related to the year 2020 and even to this year. The two biggest groups of online alternative finance platforms, as I mentioned before, are crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending platforms, which join together borrowers and lendings so that ones may provide financial resources, the other ones may receive them. Just some very brief explanation on these types. I certainly will not go through all of them, but if we speak about crowdfunding, it's initiative where large number of people may again join together to support different ideas and projects of other people. And three most common types of crowdfunding are real estate crowdfunding, where if you have free money or financial resources, you can contribute these sources to some real estate project and become either a co-owner or just lend money and receive later it back with interest rate. Reward-based crowdfunding, where you donate money, provide money, and receive back some kind of non-financial reward like goods or services, and donation, which is also quite well widespread, where you just donate money for some social projects. Peer-to-peer lending, I will speak about it in more details, and I think I will not going to touch these quite complicated terms right now. Some words about operation of these online peer-to-peer platforms, or as they are abbreviated using such symbols. So there are three players in these platforms. These are lenders, borrowers, and intermediator peer-to-peer lending platform. Just again, in some words, if a lender, any person willing and having free sources, he may pick out loans on these platforms, deciding in which projects or goods or services he wants to provide his free financial sources. If qualities of lenders meet criteria set by these lending platforms, certainly loan agreement is entered between platform and lender. Then lender contributes money through this platform, and borrower from the other side, if he needs additional financial resources, he applies to this platform, requiring for money and fulfilling criteria of platform for receiving money. He also may get a loan from lenders through this peer-to-peer lending platform, and then after a certain period repays money through the platform to lender, like a principal amount and interest. If we speak about the market share of the most popular types of online alternative finance platforms, then the biggest market share in the 2 years I have viewed in details goes to peer-to-peer lending, both consumers and companies, which accounts for approximately 50%. The other one is donation-based crowdfunding, which has grown by 3 percentage points in 2020 compared with the previous year. And basically, I can say that all these changes that have occurred during these 2 years are related to the well-known COVID crisis. What else is important? I think to speak about market volumes of European alternative finance platforms and lend money. Here, as you see, I have 2 different data for Europe, light green, including United Kingdom, and dark green for Europe, excluding United Kingdom. Why excluding United Kingdom? Because the market share of United Kingdom covers around 50% of the whole alternative finance market volume of Europe. That's why for further analysis, I have also cut off or excluded United Kingdom. And here you can see that basically all volumes for alternative financial market in Europe have steadily grown, with a little bit decrease in 2020, where one of the reasons is the same COVID crisis. The other reason is that not all online platforms have provided data on their success in this lending borrowing process. That's why there could be some kind of not very exact data for the year 2020. 10 largest peer-to-peer lending platforms in Europe, and I would also say in the world, on the 31st January this year. Here, as you see, Mintas, Latvia-based company established 7 years ago, covers almost half of the market share, a little bit more than 42%. The following companies from Latvia are Peerberry and Twino, also quite well-known company, but as you see, with smallest market shares, but nevertheless, these are 10 biggest platforms in Europe. Here you can see minimum investment, so quite small, only 10 euros. If you have free 10 euros, you can start investing in these platforms. Just some words about Mintos. Mintos is practically the only online platform which allows investing in various currencies apart euros. Other platforms operate basically with euros. Total volume of alternative finance market transactions in 2020, again excluding United Kingdom, is the following one. And if we compare Italy's share, Italy covers here with the largest volume in absolute figures, covers only 8.70% of the market share. Comparing with United Kingdom, UK volumes almost 7 times exceeds the volumes of Italy. Looking to the Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, the total market share here of the Baltic states is only 2.29%. Quite small, but remember, Latvia has 4 biggest peer-to-peer platforms in Europe, and Mintos is also the biggest one in the world. Just by type analyzing alternative finance market, here the biggest market shares goes to peer-to-peer lending to consumer, meaning individuals or private persons, 29%. Invoice trading, 20%, and peer-to-peer lending to businesses or companies, 19%. And just some data comparing these peer-to-peer volumes or lend amounts to consumers and companies. Here again, we can see quite steady growing volumes up to 2019. And in 2020, the volumes or amounts lent to consumers or private persons have decreased approximately 1.5 times. But for business lending, this amount has a little bit increased. And again, probably one of the reasons, as it is mentioned in different reports, is the same COVID crisis. My basic conclusions is that one of the major risks related to these online platforms is that service provider, this online financing platform, may no longer, for some reasons, ensure the platform operation. And this means that investor or lender is under the risk to lose its investments. About figures, I think I will not speak in more details because I have touched upon these figures also during my speech. Yes, and one thing which I didn't mention at the beginning of this year, in January, there were more than 300 alternative finance platforms in Europe. The largest number of these platforms operated in the United Kingdom, 50 platforms, followed by Spain and France. Baltic states altogether operate 50%. So 3 countries have the same amount or number of these online platforms as a United Kingdom as a single company. Okay. I think that is all. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Gunita, a lot for very topical issue, what you have showed us, presented us. We have left a little less than 1 minute for discussion. So if anyone has any question or comment, maybe you can ask now or write for the presenter in the chat part as well, and discussion continue like written way. If at this moment there is no comments or question, then I will give a floor to our second presentation that will be presented by Dana Gintere and Lasmalīcīte Ķurbe from Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies. And the presentation topic will be social entrepreneurship definition and essence in the Latvia context.
Hello, my name is Dana Gintere. I am a PhD student, and today I will represent our paper with associated Professor Lasmalīcīte Ķurbe. The topic of paper is social entrepreneurship definition and essence in Latvia context. Despite the fact that social entrepreneurship is becoming more prominent in society, scholars, scientists, and politicians cannot agree on a shared definition of social entrepreneurship or what makes a social enterprise. Each country has its own definition, each scholar has its own definition, and concept of social entrepreneurship is different. The article examines the historical backdrop of social entrepreneurship, as well as the context of Latvia and the Nordic and Baltic countries. The study examines how definitions of social entrepreneurship has changed through times in various studies. The aim of the paper is to look at and analyze the definition of social entrepreneurship in a historical context. And there were three specific research tasks to see how it can help to get aim. Various methods were used in research of the article, and the paper was conducted as a systematic review of literature. The development of social entrepreneurship can be divided into three stages: philanthropy, global social movement, and current period of modern social entrepreneurship. Initially, forms of social entrepreneurship manifested themselves in philanthropy and religious movements, and current religious movements, yes. And the reason for development of social entrepreneurship in philanthropy period was that they wanted to help solve socioeconomic problems with stratification, income inequality in groups and society. The reason for development of social entrepreneurship in global period of social movement was a concept. It manifested itself in political and social movements, and there was the first time that the concept of social entrepreneurship was emerging. In early 90s, the social entrepreneurship concept developed more and more widely as we understand it now. And the emergence of modern and social entrepreneurship is linked to the activities of Mohamed Young, who created more than 60 organizations around the world. And then we compared different definitions of social entrepreneurship in Latvia's context. We analyzed three definitions. Mohamed Yunus definition, because he was one of the first who defined and tried to define social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. Also European Commission definition, and social enterprise law, what is in Latvia. Although the definitions are different, they have common features that characterize a social enterprise. There are four common features for social entrepreneurship definitions. First one is the aim is to create a measurable positive social impact. The European Commission states in its report that the primary goal of social enterprise is to create social impact. Also, in the social enterprise law and UNO's definition, they define that the goal of social enterprise must be to solve a social problem. The second part is social entrepreneurship provides a service or sells a product to socially disadvantaged groups. Social enterprises can solve social problems in various ways, for example, by offering their services as the final product of their enterprise to customers, or another way to do is to sell or return your product to socially disadvantaged groups. The third common part is that profits are used for primary purposes. The European Commission calls for the introduction of pre-approved procedures for channeling profits to a positive social impact. Although the social enterprise law does not specifically say that profit is not to distribute among the owners, it is indicated that the status of social enterprise can be obtained only if the obtained profit is not distributed in order to achieve the objective set outside the status. And the last common thing for definitions is that company is managed in a responsible and transparent way. The definition of the European Commission states that the company must be managed responsibly and transparently. In UNUS and social enterprise law, that is not so much indicated, but also is applied. Muhammad Yunus' definition, he defines social enterprise and social entrepreneurship in general, but the European Commission and the social enterprise law in Latvia define social enterprise by supplementing it with specific legal limits. And given the confusion of the worldwide concept of social entrepreneurship, it is vital to establish whether the meaning of social entrepreneurship is specific context in a specific context is similar. So we researched definitions in Nordic and Baltic countries, and among these countries, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, and Denmark are the only ones to have adopted specific laws on social entrepreneurship, where a specific definition of social entrepreneurship also appears. And social entrepreneurship is defined differently in each country. The basis of these definitions is the one established by law, or the purpose of definition is to regulate entrepreneurship and to provide support to social entrepreneurs within the framework of law. Common to all definitions is the fact that social enterprise is a legal form, and the goal of social entrepreneurship is also unifying. It must be specific and measurable. Denmark is the only one to point out that the social enterprise is not a special form of enterprise, but it's done instead of a label that can be used by socio-economic enterprises, stating that entrepreneurship must be basis for achieving a social goal. And although the Nordic and Baltic countries are geographically closer to Latvia's position, each country has its own definition of social entrepreneurship. And these differences in the definitions of social entrepreneurship continues to interfere with the researchers' database for international researchers, while there will be significant difference in the definition of social entrepreneurship between scholars or lawmakers, there will be limitations in research to social entrepreneurship. And in conclusion, the development of social entrepreneurship can be divided into 3 stages, what we looked previously. The period of philanthropy, the period of global social movements, and modern period. The greatest contribution to the definition of social entrepreneurship and the development of concept is made in modern period. The time of modern social entrepreneurship, several representatives of social and political
shares began to update the term of social entrepreneurship in the late 20th century and beginning of 21st century, strengthening the concept of social entrepreneurship as we understand it now. Although the Nordic and Baltic countries are geographically closer to Latvia's position, each country has its own definition of social entrepreneurship and its purpose. Common to all countries' definition is that social enterprise is a legal form limited in its activities, and the goal of social entrepreneurship is also unifying. All social entrepreneurship purpose must be specific and measurable. In Latvia context, a social enterprise is an enterprise that has been granted the status of social enterprise determined by the Ministry of Welfare and which solves socio-economic problems with an entrepreneurship mechanisms. And the last conclusion, while there will be significant differences in the definitions of social entrepreneurship between scholars and lawmakers, there will be limitations in research to social entrepreneurship. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Dana, for your presentation. We have several minutes for discussion and questions. So is there any? If there is, please turn on your microphone or write in the chat. Actually, I have one question. I really liked your division in different levels of development of the social entrepreneurship. How do you see nowadays? Is there some direct interaction between philanthropy with what it started and with social entrepreneurship, what is happening now? Is there any interaction between those two parts nowadays? Do you see that?
I think that there are how people are seeing social entrepreneurships because many times society see that non-profit organizations or religious organizations are trying to make profit to solve socioeconomic problems. And then there are misconception that social entrepreneurship with status of social entrepreneurship or enterprise is the same as non-profit organization or religious organization who is doing this, using the same mechanisms, but don't have the social enterprise status. So I think in society there are some similarities, but when we are looking through law, I think that they are different, differently, yes.
Thank you. Is there any else question? Then Dana, good luck in your continuing PhD studies. Thank you for your presentation. The third presenter is a team of Lāsmalīcīte Ķurbe and Līva Sevčuna from Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies in Latvia with a topic examination of the experience of work integration social enterprises in Latvia.
So our presentation is about examination of the experience of work integration social enterprise. So first of all, a little bit about topicality. In the world, there are around 1 billion people with disabilities. And according to different international documents, it is said that persons with disabilities need to have equal access to the labor market and employment. But unfortunately, in the reality, we can see that the employment rate of people with disabilities is much lower than that of people without disabilities. For example, in Latvia in 2020, only almost 27% of people with disabilities were employed. Of course, there are different solutions, and one of the recent solutions is social entrepreneurship, because one of the kinds of social enterprises is work integration social enterprises, or so-called WISEs, which usually employs people with disabilities, but not only people with disabilities. But in this research, of course, we focused on employment of people with disabilities in work integration social enterprise. So the research aim was to examine the experience of WISEs in Latvia, and to reach our aim, we used case study method to analyze the motivation of entrepreneurs to employ such people. Also, we try to identify challenges entrepreneurs are facing for employing people with disability. And also, we examined economic performance and support instruments of WISEs. So first of all, shortly about the methodology. So we used case study method, which consists of 5 main steps. So first of all, we identified the aim of the research and we set 3 tasks. So we wanted to understand why entrepreneurs establish WISEs, what are the main challenges of employing people with disabilities, and what are the support mechanisms available to promote the employment of persons with disability. Then we chose 3 social enterprises or 3 WISEs, and we chose these enterprises based on several criteria. So these enterprises should be active, they should be registered in the Register of Social Enterprises, which means they have legal status of social enterprise, and also they have to employ a target group, which is people with disabilities. And then we created this interview protocol and conducted interviews with owners of work integration social enterprise. And of course, we also collected secondary data from Blursoft and from mass media. Then we analyzed the data and made some conclusions. So first of all, to describe a little bit situation in social entrepreneurship in Latvia. In Latvia, since 2018, we have a social enterprise law. And from one side, the legal act allows to work for social enterprise in very different fields, but the only restriction is that it should be limited liability company. So no associations or foundations can get this status, only limited liability companies. And according to legislation in Latvia, we have 3 types of social enterprise. And in this research, we focused on the first type, which means employment of groups at risk of social exclusion. It means that these social enterprises employ at least 50% of the employees who belong to the target group. And in Latvia, so far we have 202 social enterprises, from which 1/3 part are these work integration social enterprise. Also, in these enterprises, you can employ 13 groups of people who face with social exclusion. But in our research, we focused on employment of persons with disability and with mental disabilities, which is the most popular target group, which is employed in social enterprise in Latvia and also in Europe. So the results of our case study shows that we chose these 3 social enterprises which employ people with disabilities. 2 of them employ people with physical disabilities, and one of them, this Chatrivei, they employ mentally handicapped persons. So our focus was to choose different work integration social enterprise, which means that these enterprises should work with people with different disabilities. Also, they are involved in different activities. For example, this Chatrivei creates paperboard and paperboard containers. Sonido is involved in service provision sector, so they are providing they are call center operators. And then there's this 3rd social business, OVA, which produce clothing. So different examples and different experiences of work integration social enterprise. So what we found out that one of the main challenges is related with qualification of these employees. People who have mental disabilities, of course, they have lower qualifications. So, for example, this company, Chatrivei, they usually involve these employees in low qualified jobs, for example, in cleaning, but those who have higher capabilities, they are involved also in direct production. Company Sonido, they said that they have different experience with the qualification of their employees. Here they stated that mainly these people have lack of IT skills, so that because they have to use computer, and of course also they need communication skills. But the main challenge was exactly with these digital skills, how to use computer and so on. And yeah, so this is one of the biggest challenge. But the good thing is that what entrepreneurs stated, they face with a low employee turnover. So it means that employees are happy with their workplace, that they have ability to work. So yeah, there is very low this employee turnover. Also, we identified these main challenges that entrepreneurs face with employing this target group. So, of course, if you employ people with physical disabilities, you need to adapt equipment or the environment. But mainly, actually, entrepreneurs pointed out these social challenges that these people with disabilities have poor knowledge and skills, lack of work experience. For majority of them, it was the first work experience. And yeah, of course, there are some personal factors as well that people can have different attitude towards job responsibilities. And also we made economic performance analysis for these companies. Unfortunately, for the company Četrvei, we couldn't make this financial analysis because the company is established only in 2021. But for these two companies, what we can see is that they are able to work with a profit. We can see that in 2018, OVA finished their year with loss, and it was because they invested a lot of money in premises for their new shop. So they had a lot of expenses, but we can see that the next year they finished with a profit. Yeah, so we can see that this investment was quite a good idea. And of course, in 2020, all companies were affected by pandemic situation, but still they, of course, survived, as we can see. But of course, they stressed that there is need for additional support instruments. And if you look on support instruments that are available for companies which employ people with disabilities in Latvia, from one side, we can see a huge list of different support instruments, but not all of them are very useful, let's say. These companies which we analyzed in the case study analysis mentioned that they use these jobs subsidized by the state employment agency, but they also mentioned that this process to get this opportunity is quite long, bureaucratic, and sometimes entrepreneurs are losing their interest, and sometimes also employees are losing their interest. All companies use this tax relief. So companies have lower mandatory state social insurance contributions rate, but you can see that it is very, very insignificant. Yeah. So for if you employ people without disabilities or with disabilities, yeah, this rate is this difference is very small. For social enterprise, there are some special support instruments, and I would like just to stress two of them. One is this grant, which is administered by Altum and the Ministry of Welfare, which provides huge benefit to the companies. And for example, company Sonido has used this grant even 3 times. So it's not a very typical situation, but it means they know where they need this money and how to use this money and how to attract this money. All of these companies have used this new support instrument, which was introduced last year. This lower employers' mandatory state social insurance contribution rate. So if you employ people with disabilities, also with mental disorders, this part, which usually is paid by employer, is covered by the government. Well, you see, there are several other these support instruments, but they are not very often used by companies because of several reasons. So these were the 2 most important, which I wanted to stress more. So in conclusions, in Latvia, the work integration social enterprises makes around 1/3 part of all social enterprises. And this number can be increased because it's really necessary to provide working places for people with disabilities. And what we can see that from one side, the social enterprise law provides different support mechanisms for social entrepreneurs, but there is lack of specific support mechanisms for work integration social enterprise. And maybe I wanted to stress also this third conclusion. Employers have different motivation why they establish work integration social enterprise. For Ova, it was personal motivation of employer because she also belongs to the people with disabilities. Sometimes also it's a kind of success story which is created in cooperation with municipality. And this is the story about Četrivei. The initiative came from the municipality, and as a result, the company provided such a working places. But of course, there are a lot of challenges still, and how to improve skills and qualification of the target group. But in the future, we can see that these companies are still able to work profitable, but still this support is important for them from the government and also from municipality. So thank you. And if you have some questions, you are welcome to ask them.
Thank you, Lasna. Actually, I have one unscientific observation and question. When you mentioned one of these examples, case studies, is this company Ova. How do you evaluate the situation? Ova is one of these companies that during the pandemics and a little bit after pandemics in social media try to find the help, please buy, we have very bad situation. And I somehow in Latvia feel that this tendency, this trend is developing, like asking help from the society. How do you evaluate the situation? Is it okay? Is it support system not enough, or what makes these kind of situations?
Well, I think it depends on how you ask this help. Yeah, if you just provide discounts, then it's okay. And I know that Ova, they quite regularly they offer some discounts, for their T-shirts. So I think this strategy is okay, and this is related with some entrepreneurship strategies as well. But of course you cannot ask just for the nations to survive. It's not the way how business operates. But if you think about some smart ways how to ask for the help, then I believe it's okay. And these companies have survived somehow during this pandemic time. So it's possible to survive for them in different situations, but we have to understand that they face with bigger challenges. It's not so easy when you employ these target groups. So that's why some additional support should be given.
Mm-hmm. Thank you a lot. Is there any other question? If there is, please turn on your mic or you can write to the presenter.
Okay. No more question. Then actually I will we will introduce you with the next presenter, who will be Madre Dobele, who will present the research which is made together with her co-authors about factors affecting the development of urban agriculture in Latvia. So Madre, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So I'm also a university's PhD student, and today I will present research made together with my team of professors, with my colleagues. Well, urban agriculture nowadays has different forms and functions, from growing product for household self-consumption to setting up community gardens and even commercial practices. But in Latvia, it is mostly implemented through individual or community initiatives for self-consumption only, and has still a lot of steps to take in order to develop. Analyzing the role and development of urban agriculture, it is very necessary to identify the influencing factors. So the aim of the research was to identify, classify, and characterize the main factors influencing urban agriculture, specifically in Latvia. In the analysis, 12 the most important factors in case of Latvia are identified that are classified in 4 groups: political, economic, social, and environmental factors. And I will present the main impacting aspects of each factor. So, urban sustainability is one of the United Nations goals for sustainable development, which includes several areas of action. And urban agriculture, as one of food resource balancing and also urban landscaping forms, is also in line with the Food and Agriculture Organization's guidelines for the future green cities. And also, one of the priorities in Latvia's sustainable development strategy is also a high-quality living environment and territorial development and the growth of green areas in cities. Thus, Evaluating principles of the urban sustainability, this factor has the highest positive impact on the development of urban agriculture in Latvia. But the growth of the population and its demands have determined challenges to food security and also sustainability. And that is included in several international and national planning documents and strategies, also in European Union strategy Farm to Fork. Urban agriculture is able to ensure at least partial self-sufficiency of food resources, as it implements the principle of short food chains and the idea of 21st century's food shed, like growing food where we are using it. But food transportation in Latvia has a smaller impact on the environment than in larger countries, so the driving aspect of this factor is only partly implemented. Political factor about urban agriculture's status in laws and regulations has a negative impact. Related laws and regulations, both in European Union and Latvia, do not define urban agriculture. And although they do not restrict agricultural practices to rural areas, support mechanisms and requirements are largely enforceable only for agriculture in rural areas, with appropriate processing approaches and also production volumes and amounts. Without defining and including a specific status and functions for urban agriculture, the impact of legislation documents regulating agriculture in Latvia is negative for urban agriculture. But the global experience of it shows that it is possible for practice to develop also even without governmental support, at least partly. For the analysis of the development of urban agriculture in Latvia, the main 4 economic factors have been identified. The first one, land resource value and prices, are one of factors with the greatest negative impact on urban agriculture. According to cadastral values, in the comparison of different types of land that potentially could be used for agricultural practice, the difference between state cities in Latvia and counties is 4 to even 40 times, which makes the type of agricultural land in cities economically unprofitable, thus creating also the most restraining effect to the development of urban agriculture. No less important factor in the development of urban agriculture is entrepreneurship trends. And according to statistics in Latvia, in year 2021, only 2% of all agricultural enterprises in the country are registered in the state cities, which actually shows a lack of interest in commercial practices of urban agriculture. However, such aspects as the number of companies involved in food processing and food use, and also market participants in cities that are direct demanders of urban agricultural products, have a positive impact on the development of urban agriculture. The concentration of market participants in these sectors in and around cities indicates this territorial accessibility of consumers of urban agricultural products, and thus creating a moderate positive effect to this factor. In Latvia, the level of disposable income per household tends to increase, moreover, with different amount in urban and rural areas. And therefore, household income trends can be assessed as a negative factor for the development of urban agriculture in Latvia, allowing more income to be used for buying and not growing food, and making that as powerful restraining factor. But the different effect is from the aspect factor changes in the consumption of food products. Urban agriculture is most often associated with the cultivation of plant products, and that's according to land use. The average food consumption of the Latvian population shows a tendency that the urban population, compared to the rural, consumes more product groups such as fruits, berries, cabbage, tomatoes, radishes, and others. And most of them can be produced in urban agriculture during the season, thus promoting the consumption of fresh products and reducing the resource burden on rural areas, and making actually a positive effect on the development of urban agriculture. The social factor of the population concentration in urban areas has also a positive effect. Urban population grows increases the risks of this resource congestion and growing demand, but that emphasizes the topicality of the balance between consumption of food and also production, and the potential of, and gives a potential of wider, more populated and also interactive communities, and makes this transfer of the experience of the food growing from rural to urban areas. So we have more experience, we have more knowledge how to do that. And although this factor by itself gives a low positive effect, but in the interaction with political factors, it affects, actually increases. Results of the survey of the population of Latvia conducted in 2021 showed that 65% of residents of state cities are engaged in growing at least one type of food products in their household. This confirms the relevance of food growing traditions and the positive impact on the development of urban agriculture. However, in Latvia, it is mostly practiced as microagriculture, as 86% grow food for their own consumption. But in addition, 69% gain knowledge of agriculture from the family. And that makes cultivating traditions in the family as a highly contributing factor for the development of urban agriculture. An important factor promoting this development is the population's views and attitude towards urban agriculture and the food that is produced in cities. Our results of surveys show that the population evaluates urban agriculture as complementary aspect of the school programs and as a promoting practice for additional education and knowledge. Equally important are views that urban agriculture diversifies, creates a greener urban environment, and is a way to minimize negative climate change. But when evaluating food that is grown in cities, respondents have the impression that it is healthier than what is bought in a store, but potentially also more expensive. In overall, we evaluate the influence of the factor as positive. The development of urban agriculture cannot be seen in isolation from these environmental aspects, and conversation of biodiversity, it is essential aspect not only here from an environmental aspect, but also from political aspects as well. And these principles of diversification of the urban environment have a positive aspect, as urban agriculture can diversify the environment, both in terms of households and in particular the community and public gardens. The other factor is waste management trends, as waste management is one of the main challenges in the circular economy. And existing requirements and development plans, what we have now, have a positive impact on the development of urban agriculture and its topicality in two different aspects. First one, self-grown food allows to reduce food waste. And the second one, bio-waste can be used as a compost for urban agriculture, thus reducing its amount by a process of reuse. And also this creates medium, but still driving effect to urban agriculture. Summarizing the impact of the most important factors of urban agriculture in Latvia, the sum of the impact of factors in overall is positive, which shows that urban agriculture in Latvia has wide development opportunities, justified by political, economic, social, and also environmental aspects. In conclusion, urban agriculture is able to play a supportive role in a sustainable development, but the highest negative effect in the development of urban agriculture, specifically in Latvia, has economic factors, and especially in the context of resource costs. I showed you only land resource costs, but also like labor costs and other. But most of the factors has a contributing influence, especially in the context of sustainable development strategies and acknowledgement of food system values. Urban agriculture in Latvia has both potential and high development opportunities, but for more successful adoption of this practice in Latvia, the state and municipal support is needed as well. So there are main references, what is used in the research, and thank you for your attention. Although Latvia still has a lot of challenges and obstacles to overcome in a process of developing urban agriculture practices, the global experience and examples already show the importance and also solutions. So actually the main challenge for Latvia at this moment is related to transforming urban agriculture from individual practice to community and municipal approach. So thank you again, and I would appreciate if you have any questions, opinion, or comments.
Thank you, Madara. I don't see any raised hand. So it means probably no questions.
Probably no.
Yeah, you can give floor to other probably.
Yes, thank you, Ella. So our next presenter is Dr. Steffenberger from Ventspils University of Applied Sciences, and research is made together with Birute Sloka, University of Latvia, and Baiba Rivja, Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies, with the topic Importance of Innovations for Entrepreneurship Development, Views of Entrepreneurs in Kurzeme region.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for possibility to be here. And my presentation is importance of innovation for entrepreneurship development, views of entrepreneurs in Kurzeme region. It is a part of Interframe project as well. This was research. This part was also for my PhD thesis, and one of 5 steps of research in PhD thesis. About importance of the research and topicality, I would say that nowadays we have a lot of issues that are related to possibility to adapt to changes before they enter. And innovation and creativity are key aspects of economic development in times of uncertainty where we are living right now. And the aim of research was to evaluate the views of entrepreneurs related to innovation, practical applications, and problems of introduction of innovations. And methods used were previous conducted scientific research, result analysis, and analysis of statistical data, and surveys of entrepreneurs. Regarding theoretical findings, I would like to say that creation and development of innovation ecosystem takes meaningful effort from all involved actors, and higher education institutions, research organizations, entrepreneurs, and public institutions. Participants of an innovative process use differing signs for defining innovation, and changes take place on several levels: structure, process, thinking. Cooperation and innovation are considered as key success factors for development in regions, and therefore also cooperation is shaped only in a dialogue between all represented levels and all system components. Factors of the effectiveness of innovative development of Baltic states in the context of states and in the context of digitalization are on special attention by researchers. Some of key findings, theoretical findings, are represented here. You can see on this slide, but I would like to stress that innovation plays a great role on sustainability. About innovation active enterprises in Latvia, data indicates that innovation active enterprise share in Republic of Latvia during the last decade is increasing in all fields. It means in total industry, manufacturing, and services, with a bigger increase of innovation action enterprises share in manufacturing. To investigate views of entrepreneurs about several aspects of innovation, it was conducted surveys of entrepreneurs and main indicators of descriptive statistics. It is research in Kurzeme region, and there you can see that the survey results of entrepreneurs indicate that entrepreneurs have shown that the most important aspect among the analyzed was that innovation has supported increased offer of products and services, with the biggest average of evaluation with most often given evaluations. 7 and 9 indicate by mode. And there was lowest variability of entrepreneurs' evaluation. Views of entrepreneurs are very different, as almost for all evaluated aspects cover full evaluation scale is used, and among the less important aspects are considered the organization of production of work improved. Their entrepreneurs had bigger variability of evaluations. Regarding about conclusions, which is made based on this research and from about 4 other researchers prepared during this project, Interframe and other projects. Growth in region is based on a balanced development across the territory of the region. And to achieve balanced development of all regions and territories of Latvia, we believe that more attention should be paid to district centers and rural territories. The year 2020 brought adjustments to global economy and to national and regional economic development processes. Innovation having increased offer of products or services, the quality of products or services has improved, and organization of production work improved. I would like to mention that the region is a very good environment for startups, digital technology companies, as well as there are many chances of creating a safe environment for living and working conditions in proximity of nature. Also, Latvia can take into account good experience in motivation of companies for innovation from neighboring countries, Estonia and Lithuania, especially from this innovation ecosystem from Estonia. And I would like to say in conclusion that ecosystem of innovation and its relation to economic development is closely related to human resources, and we have to understand how we organize and how we help our human resources to become more creative and more innovative in that way. There was a list of literature here used in this particular publication, and this research was also supported by a national research program Interframe, and some perspective of proximity of nature here. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you.
Thank you, Dācis. Thank you a lot. And of course, I also hope that everything with your research and your studies will go even faster and even higher. According to your topic, I have one opinion question. I understand that you don't have data, but do you see these trends similar in other Latvian regions as well? I understand that your topic is based on Kurzeme region, but what about your opinion? Is there tendencies the same, similarities, or maybe in some region there are something quite different?
I would say that I think the good news for us startups and innovators is that there is possibility of networking. I think where is these networks of clusters or something like that, business incubators, there is more possibilities to become more innovating here, because I mentioned that cooperation, and we described also in other publication that this cooperation has a very big impact on how we are introduced with innovation other companies and what kind of resources we can use for that.
Thank you. So thank you a lot. Is there any other question? If you have, please turn on your mic or write in chat. If at this moment there is no question, then thank you, Dace, once more time. Thank you for your presentation. The next one, we have a team from Rezekne Academy of Technologies with Juta Deksne, Lienīte Litaunieca, Anda Zvaigzne, Jelena Lonska, and Sergei Skodors with the topic analysis of factors affecting zero waste food consumption in schools. Hello, Juta. I see that you are here.
Hello. My name is Juta Deksne, and I am from Rezekne Academy of Technologies. And today I will present our research analysis of factors affecting zero waste food consumption in schools. Every year, 1/3 of the food produced for human consumption worldwide is lost or wasted at some stage in the food supply chain, totaling approximately 1.3 billion tons of food, which causes significant economic, social, and environmental damage. To protect the planet and contribute to prosperity, in 2015, the United Nations developed the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, and Goal 12 involves ensuring responsible consumption and production patterns. It's necessary to halve global food waste per capita at the level of retailers and consumers, as well as reduce food losses in production and supply chains, which could help to ensure food security and shift to a more resource-efficient economy. In developed countries, raising awareness of food waste and loss is particularly important at the stage of consumption, which is the main source of food waste. In this respect, public school canteens create a unique environment that shows eating habits and the way the available resources are managed. School canteens, where sustainable food consumption habits need to be passed on to future generations, produce a lot of food waste. A zero waste approach has been introduced not only in several industries of the economy, but also in educational institutions. Food consumption and food waste reduction is a social responsibility of every educational institution. Therefore, food waste management requires a holistic approach to sustainable resource use and waste management. And food waste leads to the final consumption stage and is a consequence of consumer behavior. To date, the factors affecting food waste in schools in the consumption process have not been extensively researched in Latvia. Therefore, the research aims identify the factors affecting food waste and waste generation in schools and consequently barriers to zero waste food consumption based on a systematic review of literature for period 2015 to 2022. The research employed qualitative methods, systematic literature review, analysis, and synthesis, as well as the monographic method. The literature review examined 1,702 research papers and the abstracts. And using Prisma 2020 flow diagram, 54 papers were selected from the Science Direct, Scopus, and Google Scholar databases for in-depth analysis. Now results. In this figure, you can see the process of selecting and synthesizing the relevant literature. That is Prisma 2020 flow diagram, which was developed to help the researchers to clearly represent the process of literature selection. And as you can see, and how I said, finally, 54 most relevant papers were selected for user analysis. And based on the literature review, 8 groups of factors that affected the food waste in schools in the consumption process were identified. One group is demographical factors. Based on the findings, children at the age of 6 to 7 years begin to form their food waste behavior. Therefore, environmentally friendly interventions aimed at reducing food waste should begin at this age. Food consumption is also affected by gender. It has been observed that boys tend to eat more food and are even willing to eat someone else's uneaten portion, thus producing less food waste than girls do. Whereas girls prefer fruits and vegetables, thus wasting less food of this category. Political factors. School catering is governed by laws, regulations, and policies at several levels, which must comply with a number of standards, hygiene, health, and others, as well as international standards and various regulations regarding procurement, waste management, and others, but not focusing on nutrition or taste issues. School children's eating habits vary from school to school, yet the habits are strongly linked to school management priorities and positions regarding waste management and nutrition education for school children. School food policy. Catering providers could have different strategies for planning and managing the catering process. The menu and designing it are also considered to be important factors, as the reduction of food waste requires a change in practices, in particular improved planning and management based on past experience. Food leftovers could be reduced by providing enough time to eat, as the amount of food waste is affected by the duration of lunch, a sense of urgency, and the lack of time to eat. Teachers should be encouraged to have lunch with their school children, as they play an important role in shaping long-term eating habits. The size and shape of the plate also significantly affects the food waste generated. Environmental factors. The amount of food waste increases with the capacity of the dining hall, which is associated with increased levels of stress and noise. The availability of food at the school snack bar also increases food waste, which encourages school children to eat more than they can. School children waste less food if there is a positive atmosphere in the dining hall. Socioeconomic factors. Several researchers have pointed out that food waste is affected by the family's socioeconomic status and income level. The family's socioeconomic status also affects school children's attitude to food, as it has been found that primary school children from families with lower socioeconomic status associate healthy food with something tasty rather than tasteless, thus wasting less healthy food. Personal human factors. School children eating habits are extremely different, as it could be associated with the regularity of meals, the kind of breakfast, even the age at which school children start smoking, as well as their appetite. As food is wasted more when the school children are not hungry or are not satisfied with the taste of the food served or other sensory properties of the food. In addition, stress, peers, pressure from others, and the presence of other people during lunch can increase food waste. Then physical human factors. Food consumption is affected by body weight, metabolism, as well as the body mass index. It was found that the lower BMI, the higher the probability of food waste. And the various tests showed that the slimmest participants tended to waste more food. And also geographical factors. The development of the menu and the wishes of school children are also associated with the region where the school is located. Therefore, food waste differs from each kind of menu. How you see, the results shows that a very wide range of factors affect food waste in schools in the consumption process, that what should be taken into account developing effective strategies to reduce food waste in schools. So conclusions are that comprehensive research studies on the problem of food consumption and waste in schools is available in the scientific literature. And based on literature review, 8 groups of factors were identified, which affected food waste and food waste generation in schools and were therefore a barrier to zero waste food consumption. And factors identified and aggregated might provide a basis for user discussions on zero waste food consumption and food waste reduction in schools, as well as specific actions to optimize school food consumption and promote effective food and food waste management. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Jutta, for so topical presentation and issues what we need to deal with. And I'm one of a lot of persons who truly believe that zero waste and zero waste food actually is the only way how we can, in global aspect, develop further. So, is there any questions or comments from colleagues? If there is not, at least at this moment. So thank you again, Jutta, I'm sorry, I apologize. It is really nice to hear your presentation and good luck in your future researches as well. So our next presenter will be Aija Vonoga from also Rezekne Academy of Technologies, together in a team with Baiba Kļaviņa, Vidzemes University of Applied Sciences, with the topic analysis of startup development registered in the associations in the Baltic states. Hello, Aija. I see that you are already here.
Hello,
yes,
good afternoon.
Hello.
My presentation is about research thesis, analysis of startup development registered in the associations in the Baltic states. My PhD thesis is about startups, so that's why it was very interesting research for me. And this research I made with my colleague, Baiba Kļaviņa from Vidzemes University of Applied Science. So we are representing 2 universities. About the research. The aim of the research was to study startup associations in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, and analyze startups registered in databases of these associations. I chose these countries, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, because further research also I want to make with these countries. So this research was very important for my future studies and work. This research paper tasks was following to carry out a theoretical analysis of Latvian, Lithuanian, and Estonian startup associations and startups, to study the variables that characterize startups registered in startup associations in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, to perform data analysis and to visualize results, to present conclusions and proposals for further research. About research methods. Research covers data about startups founded in the period from 2011 until 2021 and included in Baltic Startup Association databases. We were analyzing these databases in Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, and oldest year which we found was 2011. And general scientific research methods used in the research was the monographic, descriptive research, the comparative analysis, and descriptive statistics. For me, was very interesting also to analyze these statistical results and the methodology of the research. Data used in research taken from publicly available databases of startup associations in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Data variables used in analysis was launch year, sector, market type, business model, funding, and turnover. Probabilistic data sampling was performed according to the stratified or typological random sampling method. Companies were selected first by year, then individual units were selected by proportional sampling within the selection groups. Together, it was 100 samples selected. However, in the process of data cleaning, some samples were eliminated. So in the final data set for analysis, there was 96 samples of Lithuanian startups, 93 samples of Latvian startups, and 97 samples of Estonian startups. We made a few also graphics. Figure 1, number of startups in Baltic Association divided in groups by foundation year. And you can see important differences. For example, Estonia and Lithuania are higher every year, and it's very, very important difference what we should see. As well, you can see this one in figure 2, number of startups in Baltic associations divided in groups by foundation year. Yes, you can see a very big difference. You see Latvia is in a red color and Lithuania green color, Estonia blue color. Yes, and this is very important thing. About the sampling, that kind of figures we made from Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Sample of startups in Latvia Association databases by received funding and their launch year. Here you can see the most of the companies are lower than 2 million funding. And in this sample of startups in Latvian Association databases in clusters by receiving funding, 28 startups have this funding from 100,000 till 500,000. That kind of sampling we made for Lithuania and also for Estonia. Main conclusions. Authors concluded that startups are an important factor in economic growth. Therefore, the development of startup ecosystems will be rapidly growing in the future. As in recent years, there has been a positive growth tendency in all Baltic countries. Also, it can be concluded that Latvian associations of startups is different from its counterparts in Lithuania and Estonia. It might be assumed that it affects the divergence of the number of startups registered in databases. In Latvia, this number is almost 10 times lower than in other Baltic states. Differences in the data included in the databases and the methodology of their display hinder the possibility to fully compare the startups included in all three associations' databases. Our suggestion is it is necessary to review the form and sources of funding for the Latvian Startup Association at the national level, as this is an obstacle to the development of the Latvian startup ecosystems compared to the rest of the Baltic states. In further research, it is planned to investigate the factors that influence startups and how to increase and promote startups in Baltic states. Thank you for attention and maybe questions.
Thank you, Aija, a lot. Actually, I had one question, like how do you see what is happening, what is the risks and restrictions of developing this, let's say, system of startups? But I see that in suggestions, this will be one of your next steps. What will you research? Or maybe you see already now what is happening in Latvia and what are main restrictions, why it's not developing this process, the system even faster?
I think the main problem is that in Latvia, Start In Association, our startup association, it's called Start In, it's NGO, it's not governmental. So I think it's also a problem with financing this association. In Lithuania and Estonia, it's governmental, so I think they get more money, more events, more projects. So that's why they are motivated to make registration in association. Mm-hmm. I think it's this problem. Of course, I need to make new research, and I would like to interview the association managers why it's happening like that. But in Latvia, it is NGO. And yes, of course, in Latvia also we have a lot of events what economic ministry making, yes, but I think it's not enough. Mm-hmm. So we see this big difference, yes, in Baltic states, and in Lithuania and Estonia they are growing very fast, but in Latvia not so fast. So I think it's.
We still have opportunities, what we need to do.
Yes, we have opportunities, yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Aya, a lot. Maybe someone else has any questions or comments to Aya's presentation? And with this presentation, we will close today's session and the conference activities for today. But tomorrow conference will continue with food sciences section from 10 o'clock. Thank you, all of you. It was very interesting to see very widely different ways where we are developing our research in economic science. I hope that everything will be okay for your further research as well. And I hope that we will meet in some other sessions or some other conference in tomorrow or in other ways. So thank you, all of you. Thank you for participation. Have a nice evening and enjoy, at least in Jelgava, it's sunny outside at this moment. So enjoy the time, enjoy the spring as we can do it still now. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.